Altai. Kazakhstan, the state in the center of Eurasia, which part belongs to Asia, smaller to Europe. The area of the territory minus 2,724,902 km. The population, according to the State Committee on Statistics for June 1, 2021, makes 18,984,845 people. Population density is one of the lowest. Less 7 people per square kilometer. The capital, Nur-Sultan. The largest city with the population over 2 million people, Almaty, takes the 9th place in the world on territories, the 2nd place among the countries of the former Soviet Union, after Russia, the 42nd on DDD volume on PPS, and the 64th on population. Kazakhstan officially is the democratic, secular, unitary, constitutional republic with various cultural heritage. The area of Kazakhstan includes plains, steppes, a taiga, rocky canyons, hills, deltas, snow-covered mountains and deserts. In economy, the hydrocarbon industry dominates, and employment of the population is maximum in services sector. Nowadays the government makes efforts on diversification and plans switching of the national industry to production of goods with the high surplus value of. Is located between the Caspian Sea, Lower Volga area, the Urals, Siberia, China and Central Asia. Borders in the north and the west on Russia. Border length minus 7548. 1 km. In the east on China. 1782.8 km. In the south on Kyrgyzstan. 1241.6 km. Uzbekistan. 2351.4 km. And Turkmenistan. 426 km. From eastern frontiers of Kazakhstan to the western borders of Mongolia the distance makes about 40 km. Total length of overland borders minus 13,392.6 km. Country extent from the east on the west is 2963 km, and from the north on the south minus 1652 km. Is the biggest country of Turkic Council across the territory. It is washed by waters of the Midland Caspian and Aral seas. Has no outlet to the sea and is the largest country in the world with such feature. In the administrative territorial relation is divided into 14 areas and 3 cities of republican value. Nur-Sultan, Almaty and Chimkent. Besides, there is a city with the special status, Baikonur, which till 2050 is rented by Russia and for this period any relationship with her is allocated with the status corresponding to the federal city of the Russian Federation. The total area of the lands rented by Russia is 111,913 km. 4.1% of the territory of the country. Geographically, Kazakhstan is divided into the central, western, east, northern and southern regions. The territory of Kazakhstan was historically populated with nomadic ethnoses and at different times was a part of empires. In the ancient time here Scythians wandered. Nomads of Turkic origin inhabited the country throughout the most part of her history. The power of Achaemenidov extended to the southern part of the modern territory of the country about the 4th century BB. in the 13th century as a part of the Mongolian Empire under the power of Genghis Khan. By the 16th century, Kazakhs were created as the independent group divided into three Juzas, the branch of ancestors occupying certain territories. The Russian Empire began offensive at the Kazakh steppe in the 18th century, and to the middle of the 19th century nominally ruled all Kazakhstan. After the October Revolution of 1917 and the subsequent civil war, the territory of Kazakhstan several times was exposed to reorganization. In 1936, the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic, which was a part of the Soviet Union, was formed. Kazakhstan was the last of federal republics, announced independence during disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991. Nursultan Nazarbayev became the first president of the republic. In March 2019 he resigned, and the chairman of the Senate Kassym-Jomart Tokayev held a post of the interim president and subsequently won elections on June 9, 2019. Human Rights Watch and other human rights organizations regularly describe a situation with human rights in Kazakhstan as bad. According to a census of 2009, 131 ethnic groups of Kazakhstan Kazakhs, 63% of the population. Russians, Uzbeks, Ukrainians, Germans, Tatars and Uyghurs were among. Islam is religion about 70% of the population, Christianity -26%. Kazakhstan officially declare freedom of worship, but religious leaders, speakers mind the government, are suppressed. To pass to the section, sharp, Kazakh is a state language, and Russian has the equal official status for all levels of administrative and institutional appointment. To pass to the section, sharp, country enters into the Union, the UTO, the CISIS, SCO, the Eurasian Economic Union, the STO, OSCE, OEC and Turkso. The name comes from the self-name of ethnos and Razona, which comes from the Old Turkic word Cossack, free, that reflected a nomadic way of life of the population. The name element, a camp, is meant by the earth, the place, the area, has Iranoyasichny origin and is widespread in the east. Therefore the name, Kazakhstan, can be translated literally as, the earth of free people. The name Cossack in 1936 was changed on Kazakh, having replaced the last letter, to, on X, to avoid confusion between the state of Cossacks and the people of Cossacks. Kazakhs. For the first time the name Kazakhstan was used in the historical work Badai of Albakai. Though traditionally it is only about the ethnic Kazakhs including living in China, Russia, Turkey, Uzbekistan and other neighboring countries, the term Kazakh is even more often used for designation of any resident of Kazakhstan including non-Kazakhs. Komano-Kypchaksky Confederation in Eurasia about 1200. Kazakhs are a branch of medieval Tatars or the Tataro-Mongol. After a Kozakhoveni Tataro-Mongols of Ulis Orda Edhena became Cossacks, 1936 was decided to replace this word with a word the Kazakh, not to confuse with the Russian Cossacks. Kazakhstan was populated since a Paleo. The cattle breeding developed in the Neolithic era as the climate and a relief of the region best is suitable for a nomadic way of life. The Kazakhstan territory was a key component of the Eurasian steppe route, the primogenitor of an overland silkway. Archaeologists consider that here people for the first time cultivated a horse. In the last prehistoric times, Central Asia was populated with such groups as, probably, Proto-Indo-European Afanasievsky culture, later early Indo-Iranian cultures, such as Andronovsky a lump. 4. And later Indo-Iranian cultures, such as Saksky and Massagetski lump. 5. Lump. 6. Other groups included nomadic Scythians and the Persian power of Achaemenid in the southern territory of the modern country. In 329 BB, Alexander of Macedon and his army battled and fight on Yaksart against Scythians along the Yakarts River, known as the Sirdaria, along the southern border of modern Kazakhstan now. Cumana entered steppes of modern Kazakhstan approximately at the beginning of the 11th century, where they joined Kypchaka later and founded extensive Kumano-Kypchaksky Confederation. While the ancient cities of Taraz, Alayada, and Turkestan long time served as important transit points along the Silk Way connecting Asia and Europe, the real political consolidation began only with the Mongolian dominion of the beginning of the 13th century. At the Mongolian Empire, the administrative districts, largest in world history, were created. Finally, they got under the power of the arising Kazakh Khanate. Throughout this period in the steppe, the traditional nomadic way of life and livestock economy continued to dominate. In the 15th century, among Turkic tribes, the distinct Kazakh identity which process was fixed to the middle of the 16th century with the advent of Kazakh culture and economy began to be formed. Nevertheless, the region was in the center of constantly growing disputes between radical Kazakh emirs and the next Persiazichny people in the south. During the blossoming, the Khanate will govern parts of Central Asia and to control Kumania. By the beginning of the 17th century, the Kazakh Khanate fought against influence of breeding rivalry which actually divided the population into the senior, average and small hordes. Shoes. The political dissociation, rivalry of tribes and reduction of value of overland tradeways between the east and the west weakened the Kazakh Khanate. The Kievan Khanate seized this opportunity and annexed the peninsula of Mangaslak. The Uzbek board proceeded 2 centuries before arrival of Russians there. Within the 17th century, Kazakhs battled against Urartu, federation of the West Mongolian tribes, including the Dzungar. The beginning of the 18th century marked the zenith of the Kazakh Khanate. During this period, the small horde was involved in the war against the Dungarian Khanate of 1723-1730, which followed for them, great disaster, invasion on the Kazakh territories. Under the direction of Abulkar Han, Kazakhs won large victories over Dzunghars at the Bulanta River in 1726 and then fight at Anarkai in 1729. Abulay Han demanding Dzunghar from the 1720th to the 1750th years was involved in the most considerable battles for what the people declared in the Beta. Kazakhs suffered from frequent attacks on them from the Volga Kalmyks. The Kokand Khanate used weakness of the Kazakh Juzes after the Dungarian and Kalmyk attacks and conquered present southeast Kazakhstan, including Alma-Ata, the formal capital, in the first quarter of the 19th century. Besides, the Bukhara Emirate ruled Shymkent before Russians took domination. In the territory of northern and central Kazakhstan, Kypchaksky tribes long since lived, and in the territory of southeast Kazakhstan, tribes of Yusini lived. They laid the foundation of formation of ethnogenesis of the senior and average Shus of Kazakhs. Kiran arrived to the territory of Pryatisht at the beginning of the 13th century. Sunhas, suffering a defeat in the middle of the 16th century, forcibly leave the southern and east Mongols on the west, the north, and force out the Kazakh tribes from there, Wak and Kypchak, which at that moment were already a cornerstone of the Kazakh Khanate. During the Kazakh and Ungarian Wars, a part of Kazakhs were forced to recede towards mountains Karata and to be settled on coast of the Surdaria. At this time the Russian Empire intensifies construction of the lines consisting of fortresses. A new line was put forward deep into Kochevia of the average shoes up to 200-250 versts. So in the first half of the 18th century the Russian Empire built the Irtish line consisting of 46 forts and 96 redoubts, including Omsk. 1716. Semipalatinsk. 1718. Pavlodar. 1720. Orenburg. 1743. And Petropavlovsk. 1752. To prevent attacks of Kazakhs on the territory which occupied by Russians and for further colonization of the Kazakh lands. The line was protected by Cossacks of the Siberian Linear Army. They come from the remains of group of Yermak which lodged in the One territories. The maintenance of the groups in the Kyrgyz, Kazakh steppe was their main task. After falling of the Dungarian Khanate, 1755, a part of Kazakhs sought Kashevit on the north and was settled in the territory between modern Omsk and Ust-Kamenogorsk. Penetration of Kazakhs on the north to the Siberian lands was so fast in Massachusetts that the Russian authorities were forced to take Desyativyasny borderland along the Siberian line with the purpose to stop resettlement of Kazakhs in the Russian limits. However, this measure didn't become a serious obstacle, and therefore the Russian authorities gradually began to permit to Kazakhs to pass this line. Kazakhs lodged in the territory of the Omsk county, their considerable part moved ahead to the southern parts of the Tobolsk and Tomsk provinces, in the territory of Tukhalinsky and Tarsky counties. Alekhan Bukhakinov, the Kazakh statesman holding a post of the Prime Minister of Alashki Autonomy from 1917 to 1920. At the end of the 18th century, Kazakhs used Pugachev's revolt, which was concentrated on the Volga region, to make attack on the Russian and Volga region German settlements. In the 19th century, the Russian Empire began to expand the influence in Central Asia. The period of a big game usually is considered proceeding approximately since 1813 to the English-Russian Convention of 1907. The Russian Tsars actually ruled the most part of the territory belonging now to Kazakhstan. The Russian Empire introduced a control system and constructed military garrisons and barracks, seeking to establish presence in Central Asia within the so-called Big Game, for domination in the field of the minding British Empire, extending the influence from the south to India and Southeast Asia. The Russian authorities entered Russian at all schools and the state organizations. Attempts of Russia to impose the control system caused discontent of the Kazakh people, and by 1868 years some Kazakhs began to show resistance to the Russian board. The Kazakh national movement sought to keep the native language and originality, resisting attempts of the Russian Empire to assimilate and suppress them. However, as a result, the traditional nomadic way of life and the economy based on livestock production gradually collapsed, people suffered from hunger and exhaustion, and some Kazakh tribes were destroyed. From 1890 years, the increasing number of immigrants from the Russian Empire began to colonize the territory of modern Kazakhstan, in particular, the province of Semirki. The number of settlers increased after completion of construction of the Aral Railroad from Orenburg to Tashkent in 1906 even more. Specially created migration management, resettlement management. In St. Petersburg supervised and encouraged migration for expansion of the Russian influence in this region. Within the 19th century, about Russians immigrated to Kazakhstan, and about 1 million Slavs, Germans, Jews and others immigrated to the region in the first third of the 20th century. Vasily Balabanov was the administrator responsible for resettlement during the most part of this time. The competition for the earth and water which arose between Kazakhs and newcomers caused great discontent with colonial domination of existence of the Russian Empire in recent years. The most serious revolt, the Central Asian Revolt, took place in 1916. Kazakhs attacked the Russian and Cossack settlers and military garrisons. The revolt led to a number of collisions and the cruel murders committed by both parties. Both parties resisted the government of Bolsheviks until the end of 1919. The map of Alashsky autonomy made by figures of Alash Party. It is stored in fund of the State Archive of the Russian Federation in Moscow. After disintegration of the central government in Petrograd in November 1917, Kazakhs, then in Russia officially being called as Kyrgyz, endured the short period of autonomy, Alashsky autonomy, finally to concede to government of Bolsheviks. The decree of the Council of People's Commissars, CPP, of Rusfers of July 10, 1919 created the Kyrgyz Edge. On August 26, 1920 the Kyrgyz Autonomous Ser as a part of Rusfers was formed. Kyrgyz the Asar included the territory of modern Kazakhstan, but the city of Orenburg, which is mainly inhabited by Russians, was her administrative center. Later in 1925, the administrative center of the republic was transferred to the south to the city of Joint Stock Company Mosque, and the Orenburg province was brought out of structure Kyrgyz by the Asar and included in Rusfers. In June 1925, Kyrgyz the Asar renamed into Kazakhskaya of the Asar, in July the capital of Joint Stock Company Mosque, into Kzilorda. Since April 1927 the administrative center Kyrgyz the Asar, Almaty. The Soviet repressions mined traditional elite, along with violent collectivization in the late 20s and the 1930th years, led to hunger and the speeded up mortality what disorders. See also followed. Hunger in Kazakhstan of 1932-1933. Within the 1930th years some representatives of the Kazakh intellectuals were executed within the political repressions held by the Soviet government in Moscow. December 5, 1936 Kazakh by the Asar, which territory corresponded to the territory of modern Kazakhstan by then. It was separated from Rusfers and it is transformed to the Kazakh Ser, the full Federal Republic of the Asar, one of 11 such republics at the time, along with the Kyrgyz Ser. The Republic was one of destinations for exiled and the condemned persons and also for several Massachusetts resettlements or deportations initiated by the central authorities of the Asar in 1930 and 1940. Volga German were deported from the Asser Germans of the Volga region in September-October 1941. Then there were deportations of Greeks and Crimean Tatars. Prisoners were located in labor camps of a system Gulag. At the same time, a number of large camps intended not for convicts per outcast, for example, the Algeria camp, which was reserved for wives of the men who were considered as enemies of the people. So also special settlers began to make an essential part of the population of Kazakhstan deported. The Great Patriotic War led to intensive industrialization and growth of mining in support of military efforts of the Asser. Nevertheless, by 1953 Kazakhstan still had mainly agricultural economy. The same year the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev initiated the campaign for development of virgin lands designed to turn traditional pasturable grounds of Kazakhstan into the large region on production of grain for the Soviet Union. The policy for virgin lands brought the mixed results. However, along with the subsequent modernizations under the leadership of the Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev, accelerated development of the agrarian sector, which remains a source of means of livelihood for a considerable part of the population of Kazakhstan. Because of decades of deprivations, war and resettlements, by 1959 Kazakhs became minority in the country, making 30% of the population. Ethnic Russians made 43%. The International Conference on Primary Health Care in 1978, known as the Almaty Declaration. In 1947 the government of the Asser, within the project of creation of an atomic bomb, created the ground for tests of an atomic bomb near the northeast city of Semipalatinsk, where in 1949 the first Soviet test of an atomic bomb was carried out. Hundreds of nuclear tests were conducted till 1989 and had negative environmental and biological impacts. The anti-nuclear movement in Kazakhstan became the main political force in the late 80s. In December 1986 in Almaty there took place the Massachusetts demonstrations of young ethnic Kazakhs, later called the Zeltiksansky Revolt, in protest at replacement of the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Kazakh served in Nukameda Kunida by Gennady Kolbin from Rostov. Government troops suppressed disorders, several people were killed, and many protesters were imprisoned. Further, the discontent with the Soviet power continued to grow and found the expression in the publicity policy pursued by the Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. On October 25, 1990, Kazakhstan proclaimed sovereignty in the territory as the Republic as a part of the Asser. After an unfortunate attempt of a coup in Moscow in August 1991, Kazakhstan announced independence on December 16, 1991, having become thus the last Soviet republic which declared independence. 10 days later the Soviet Union stopped the existence. The leader of the Kazakhstan communistic era, Nursultan Nazarbayev, became the first president of the country who, according to some sources, rules authoritatively. The emphasis was placed on transformation of national economy to market economy, while political reforms lagged behind achievements in economy. By 2006 Kazakhstan generated 60% of GDP of Central Asia, generally due to the oil industry. In 1997 the government transferred the capital to Akmola. In 1998 renamed into Astana, and the last on March 23, 2019 in Nur-Sultan. From Almaty, the largest city of Kazakhstan, where she was from 1927 to 1997. Kazakhstan, the state located in two parts of the world on border of Europe and Asia. The she part of the country is in Asia, smaller in Europe. And the Soviet, Russian and Kazakh authoritative sources the border of Europe on her side passing through Kazakhstan is carried out on the Mubads Hills Mountains and the river Emba. With an area of 2.7 million km. To Western Europe, equivalent by the size, Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country of the world and also the largest country which doesn't have an exit to the world ocean. The border of Kazakhstan with Russia is the most extended continuous overland border in the world, -6846 km, with Uzbekistan -2203 km, with China -1533 km, with Kyrgyzstan -1051 km and with Turkmenistan -379 km. Kazakhstan is located between 46 AE and 87 AE east longitude, 40 AE and 55 AE northern latitude. Landscapes of the country stretch from the west to the east, from the Caspian Sea to Altai Mountains, and from the north to the south, from plains of western Siberia to oases and deserts of Central Asia. The Kazakh steppe plain, which area is about km, occupies a third of the territory of the country and is the world's largest Sukhostepny region. The steppe is characterized by the big areas of pasture land and sandy areas. The main seas, lakes and the rivers include the Aral Sea, Lake Balkhash and the Lake Zaysan, and also the rivers are Irtysh, Ishim, Ural and the Sirdarya. In Kazakhstan there are several important rivers which are navigable. All of them proceed on the outskirts of the country, in the central part, however here almost only the steppe rivers which are often drying up in the middle of summer flow. The longest rivers of the country, Irtysh, 4473 km, including 1700 km in Kazakhstan. The Sirdarya, 2212/1400 km. The Urals, 2428/1100 km. And Ar, 1001/815 km. Other important rivers include Ishim, Tobol, Emba, Sarisa. The longest waterless steppe river, Shuanur. Irtysh and Tunur connects the most important channel of the country. Irtysh, Karaganda, 500 km. Kazakhstan is rich with lakes, especially in the north of the country. In the country there are about 48,000 big and small lakes, the majority of which salty. The biggest lake in the country is the Caspian Sea, now making about 371,000 km. About a quarter of its water area belongs to Kazakhstan. The Caspian Sea possesses rich natural resources, for example, fish. Here too the protected Caspian seal lives. The second largest lake of Kazakhstan, Balkhash. Its area is km. It stretches for 620 km in length. Balkhash completely belongs to Kazakhstan. One of the features of Balkhash is that it is one of rare lakes which about a half of the water area is fresh, and the second half salty. Earlier the Aral Sea, however its water area in the second half of 20 was in the second place by the size. Instead of Balkhash. The beginning of the 21st century it was considerably reduced. This process of drying already resulted in serious damage to people and the nature. Saykhana-Arala, it is connected with what for many years Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan used on irrigation. First of all, for cotton breeding. The most part of a drain of the Amudarya and Sirdarya rivers which feed Aral. The dried out Aral Sea broke up to 3 reservoirs, the most northern of them, small Aral Sea. 3,300 km. Entirely is located in Kazakhstan. It eats waters Cheese Darya and was separated by a dam for prevention of an overflow of water in the southern Uzbekistan part. The largest reservoirs Kapchagaysko, Bakhterminsko and Shardarinsko. In Kazakhstan, sharply continental climate with warm summer and in very cold winter. Nur-Sultan is the second coldest capital in the world after Ulaanbaatar. Rainfall varies between droughty and semi-droughty conditions, and the winter is especially dry. Kazakhstan has a rich stock of available mineral and fossil fuel resources. Development of oil production, natural gas and minerals attracted the most part from more than $40 billion foreign investments in Kazakhstan since 1993 and is about 57% of industrial production of the country. Or about 13% of gross domestic product. By some estimates, Kazakhstan has the second largest reserves of uranium, chrome, lead and zinc. Third largest reserves of manganese. The fifth largest reserves of copper. Also enters the top 10 on reserves of coal, iron and gold. It is also the exporter of diamonds. The most significant for economic development is that the country takes the 11th place in size of explored reserves of oil and natural gas. "160 fields, about more than 2.7 billion tons of oil are in total reconnoitered. However, by modern estimates, fields on the Caspian Sea coast are only a small part of much more large-scale deposit. Believe that it is possible to find 3.5 billion tons of oil in this area and 2.5 billion m. gas. The general assessment of oil fields of Kazakhstan makes 6.1 billion tons. At the same time in the country there are only 3 oil refineries located in Atara, Pavlodar and Shymkent. They are incapable to process all extracted crude oil, therefore her most part is exported to Russia. According to Power Information of the USA, in 2009 Kazakhstan extracted about card barrels. Card oil in day. Kazakhstan also possesses large-scale deposits of phosphorites. One of the largest is the basin of Karadovrum 650 million tons beyond Chelysysk field of the Ibdubinsk phosphoritory basin located in the northwest of Kazakhstan with a resource to 500-800 million tons of ore from 9-10% of bio. On October 17, 2013, the Initiative of Transparency of the Extracting Industries (IT) recognized Kazakhstan as the corresponding IBDO. That means that in the country there is a basic and functional process for ensuring regular disclosure of income from natural resources. In a northern part of the Republic, Chernozems prevail. They are located on the humidified plains of steppes. The zone of their distribution is in all territory of the North Kazakhstan area and is the main rich region. To the south of Chernozems, chestnut soils are located. Chestnut soils occupy the central Kazakhstan, a part of Caspian Depression. These soils meet in a steppe and semi-desertic zone, occupying 34% of the territory of the country. The maintenance of a humus -4–3%. Are subdivided into dark chestnut soils of the dry steppe, moderately dry steppe and light brown soils of the semi-desert. The southern part of the territory is covered by brown and grey-brown soils. The maintenance of a humus isn't enough, about 1–2%. These areas are used generally for livestock production. Agriculture is probable only at irrigation. In mountains of the western Tian Shan, the belt of brown soils is located. In mountains Terbagote, the western Altai, chestnut, dark chestnut and Chernozyms. Soils of the foothills and mountains occupy 12.4% of the country. Today in Kazakhstan there is a problem of an erosion of soils. According to Institute of Soil Science of ARC, about 26% of soils of the country are inclined to an erosion. About 52 million hectares are inclined in a wind erosion, 17 million hectares to water soil erosion. The relief of Kazakhstan is extremely various, but the most part of the territory consists of plains, low mountains and hills. In the central regions of the country, the Kazakh Melkosapotnik, or in Kazakh, Sera Arch. The Yellow Steppe is located. In the center of the Kazakh Melkosapotnik, Ishim is in Riverheads, the capital, the city of Nur-Sultan, and to the west from a Melkosapotnik, the Tergay Plateau. All northern part is located on the West Siberian plain. Slightly to the south of the plain, the small mountains of Kokshetau, Sinagori, Tower. The western part of the country is concentrated by the most part on the East European plain, on which there is Caspian Depression and the Siberal Plateau. In the west of Kazakhstan there are also low Mugadshar Hills Mountains, the southern continuation of the Ural Mountains. On the peninsula of Mangaslak, on 132 m below sea level, the hollow Karajai Bater is located. To the east from the peninsula of Mangaslak, the Sturt Plateau, which regions form high ledges. Chinka stretches. In the east of Kazakhstan, Tower Mount Altai and the Terbagote, divided by the Lake Sasin. From southern to east part of Kazakhstan along borders with Kyrgyzstan and China, ridges of the northern outskirts of Tian Shan are stretched, reaching on a joint of borders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and China nearly 7,000 m above sea level. Peak of Kontengri, 6995 m. In the southeast of the country, ridges the Dingarian Alatau and Zalisky Alatau are located. The foot of Zalisky Alatau is the former capital of Kazakhstan and the largest city of the country, Almaty. In the west of the country, the part of the East European platform. In the southwest, folded constructions of the Alpine belt, and in the rest folded constructions and Epigetsinsky plates of the Uralo-Mongolsky belt is located. Because of it, earthquakes are frequent. See the Kaminsky earthquake, earthquakes in Almaty. Part of the East European platform in Kazakhstan is the Caspian Sineclize. Folded constructions of the Alpine belt are on the peninsula of Mangustow. Folded constructions of the Uralo-Mongolsky belt occupy the central, east and southeast parts of the country. Kaledonida, the Kazakhstan and Altai science folded systems concern them. and Chertsinida, the Dobrobakashsky, Ural and Irtysh folded system. The Caledonian part of the considered construction can be, from positions of tectonics of Earth's plates, is allocated as the Srednovoysky Kazakhstan continent. In the late Paleozoic this continent was increased for the account and finally was soldered to Euro-American, Lavrussia, and Siberian continents. Distinctive feature of the Caledonian part of the region is that the granite and metamorphic layer of crust in her limits was created by the end of the Ordovician, as a result of a Tikhonsky Skladchatost, as defined emergence of the Kazakhstan continent. Up to this point during the Neoproterozoic, the Cambrian, this area consisted of the diverse blocks and microcontinents divided by hollows with bark of oceanic and transitional types. Epichertsinsky plates of the Uralo-Mongolsky belt occupy the territory from the north to the south. Plates Taransky and West Siberian belong to them. Two plates are divided by the Turgai deflection. Plates divide Caledonida and Chertsinida of the Uralo-Mongolsky belt in Kazakhstan. In Kazakhstan there are 10 nature reserves and 10 national parks which are a shelter for many the rare and being under the threat of disappearance plants and animals. Widespread plants are Iastragat agg onions, Asegen and Australodocnic. Endangered species of plants include local crabs, Nalus sieversii, wild grapes, Vitis vinifera, and several species of wild tulips. For example, Tulip agrigii, and rare species of Allium caritaviense onions and also Iris wilmotiana and Tulipa kaufmanniana. The wolf, red fox, Corsic fox, elk treat widespread mammals. The largest species of wild rams. The Eurasian lynx, also the snow leopard, some of which are under protection manat. As of 2016, on the red list of Kazakhstan 125 vertebrates, including a great number of birds and mammals, and 404 plants are ranked as protected species, including mushrooms, seaweed and lichens. The greatest problems of Kazakhstan are the problems connected with climate change and thinning of an ozone layer, reduction of a biodiversity, desertification, pollution of water resources, air, accumulation of industrial and consumption waste. It's subject to processes of desertification and degradation in different degree of the earth. 70% of the territory of the republic that is in many respects caused by natural features of the country. From 188.9 million hectares of pastures of the country, extreme extent of degradation is observed on 26.6 million hectares. According to the report of Environmental Performance Index published in 2018 by specialists of Yale University, the country took the 101st place on an ecological situation from 180 included. Other problem is air pollution. In 2018 on purity of air, Kazakhstan took the 90th place in the report of Environmental Performance Index. Also takes the low place Kazakhstan by such criteria as environment protection, species under the threat of disappearance and to quality of farming. Kazakhstan is the unitary republic. Nursultan Nazarbayev directed the country from 1991 to 2019. On March 20, 2019 he was replaced by Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. The president can veto the legislation which was accepted parliament and also is the commander-in-chief of armed forces. The Prime Minister heads the cabinet and is the head of the government of Kazakhstan. In the cabinet there are 3 deputy prime ministers, the head of office of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kazakhstan and 17 ministers. Kazakhstan has the 2-chamber parliament consisting of Majlis, lower house, and the Senate, upper house. In single-candidate districts in the people 107 places in Majlis are chosen. Also there are 10 participants elected by vote of the party list. The Senate is formed by the deputies representing 2 persons from each area, the cities of Republican value and the capital of the Republic of Kazakhstan. 15 deputies of the Senate are appointed the President of Kazakhstan, taking into account need of providing representation for the Senate of national and cultural and other significant interests of society. Deputies of Parliament and the government have the right of a legislative initiative, though the government offers the majority of the laws considered by Parliament. As a result of elections to Majlis in September 2004 in the lower house, the pro-government party Nur Otan, led by the President Nazarbayev, prevails. 2 other parties, including the East Agrarian and Industrial Bloc and the Asar party created by the daughter of the President Nazarbayev, received the majority of the remained places. Opposition parties which were officially registered and participated in elections received 1 place. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe watched elections which, according to it, didn't conform to the international standards. On December 4, 2005, Nursultan Nazarbayev was re-elected in a clear-cut victory. The Election Commission declared that he collected more than 90% of votes. OSCE came to a conclusion that elections didn't conform to the international standards, despite some improvements in the organization of elections. On August 17, 2007, elections to the lower house of parliament, and the coalition led by ruling party of Nur Otan, which included Asar party, Civil Party and the Agrarian Party of Kazakhstan, were held. I received each place from 88% of votes. Any of opposition parties didn't reach reference level to 7% of places. Opposition parties accused the power of serious violations on elections. In 2010, the President Nazarbayev rejected an appeal of supporters to hold a referendum to keep him in a position till 2020. He insisted on presidential elections for a 5-year term. In the vote which took place on April 3, 2011, the President Nazarbayev received 95.54% of votes, in which 89.9% of the registered voters took part. In March 2011, Nazarbayev told about the progress made by Kazakhstan in the direction of democracy. As of 2010, Kazakhstan was registered in the Index of Democracy on The Economist as authoritarian regime. On April 26, 2015, in Kazakhstan there took place the 5th presidential elections. Nazarbayev was re-elected from 97.7% of voices. On March 19, 2019, Nazarbayev declared the resignation from the presidency. The Speaker of the Senate of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, became an acting president after Nursultan Nazarbayev's resignation. Later, Tokayev won presidential elections of 2019, which took place on June 9, having collected 70% of votes. OSCE said that elections were saddened by serious violations, including stuffing. Thousands of people took part in protests against results of vote. Judicial authority is carried out by the Supreme Court, regional, military, city, district and specialized courts. The Supreme Court is the supreme judicial authority on civil, criminal and other cases. Jurisdictional, local and other courts carries out functions of cassation instance in relation to them and makes explanations concerning judicial practice by means of adoption of standard resolutions. 7. The chairman of the Supreme Court and the judge are elected by the Senate on the representation of the President of Kazakhstan based on the recommendation of the Supreme Judicial Council. The resolution of the Senate of Parliament of December 17, 2017, Asanov Zokip Kazmanovich is elected the chairman of the Supreme Court. Chairman of Judicial Boards of Local and Other Courts. Chairman of Judicial Boards of the Supreme Court are appointed the President according to the recommendation of the Supreme Judicial Council on the basis of representation of the Chairman of the Supreme Court and the decision of a plenary session of the Supreme Court. Chairman of Local and Other Courts. Judges of local and other courts are appointed to a position by the President of Kazakhstan according to the recommendation of the Supreme Judicial Council. In the country, other courts, including specialized courts, can be created. Military, financial, economic, administrative, for minors and others. Specialized courts are formed by the President with the status of regional or district court. "14 areas, 87 cities, including 3 cities of Republican value: Nur-Sultan, Almaty, Shymkent. 38 cities of regional value and 47 cities of regional value. 178 areas are a part of Kazakhstan, including 17 areas in the cities: 8 in Almaty, 4 in Shymkent, 4 in Nur-Sultan and 2 in Karaganda. 30 settlements and 68 villages. In the country of 26 settlement administrations, including 19 consist of 1 settlement, and 95 district administrations, including 543 consisting of 1 independent settlement, and 76 rural administrations. In 2018, 1 more administrative urban area in Nur-Sultan was formed. The territory of the city of Aktobe was divided into 2 administrative urban areas. The city of Baikonur has the special status as till 2050 it is leased Russia for Baikonur Cosmodrome. Each region is headed by the Hakim, governor, appointed by the president. Hakims of the cities of regional value, the rural districts, settlements and villages of Kazakhstan which aren't a part of the rural district are elected for a period of 4 years by means of indirect elections. Deputies of Maslakat of the respective area act as electors. Municipalities exist at each level of administrative division in Kazakhstan. The cities of Republican, regional and regional value belong to city settlements, all others to rural. At the highest level there are cities of Almaty, Nur-Sultan and Shymkent which are classified as the cities of Republican value at the administrative level equal to the level of the region. At intermediate level there are cities of regional value at the administrative level equal to area level. The cities of these 2 levels can be divided into city districts. At the lowest level there are cities of regional value, and more than 200 villages and rural settlements. Alls at the administrative level are equated to rural districts. Kazakhstan is a dick of the Sisis, Oz and Sko. Kazakhstan, Russia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan created the Eurasian Economic Community in 2000 to revive former efforts on harmonization of trade tariffs and to create the free trade zone within the customs union. On December 1, 2007 it was declared that Kazakhstan was elected the chairman of Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe for 2010. Kazakhstan was for the first time elected the member of Council of the Union on Human Rights on November 12, 2012. Kazakhstan is also a member of the Union, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Council of Euro-Atlantic Partnership, Turkic Council and Organization of Islamic Cooperation. He is an active participant of the program of NATO, Partnership for Peace. From the moment of finding of independence in 1991, Kazakhstan pursues so-called multi-vector foreign policy, seeking to maintain equally good relations with the two large neighbors, Russia and China, and also with the United States and the Western world. Now Russia rents 111,913 km. The Kazakhstan territory. 1% of the territory of the country, including Baikonur Cosmodrome in the southern part of the central Kazakhstan, from where the first person, the Soviet Snowstorm spaceship and the Mir space station were started in space. On April 11, 2010, Presidents Nazarbayev and Obama met at the Summit on Nuclear Safety in Washington, the District of Columbia, and discussed issues of strengthening of strategic partnership between the United States and Kazakhstan. They undertook to intensify bilateral cooperation for assistance of nuclear safety and non-proliferation, regional stability in Central Asia, economic prosperity and to universal values. In April 2011, the President Obama called the President Nazarbayev and discussed many joint efforts in the field of nuclear safety, including providing nuclear material from the Bean-350 reactor. They considered progress in achievement of the goals put by two presidents during their bilateral meeting at the Summit on Nuclear Safety in 2010. On June 28, 2016, Kazakhstan was elected the non-permanent member of the Union Security Council for a two-year term. Kazakhstan actively supports the Union peacekeeping missions in Haiti, Western Sahara and Côte d'Ivoire. In March 2014, the Ministry of Defense chose 20 Kazakhstan servicemen as observers for the Union peacekeeping missions. The military personnel holding positions from the captain to the colonel had to have special training in the Union. They had to be fluent in English and be able to use the specialized military transport. In 2014, Kazakhstan provided to Ukraine humanitarian aid during the broken-out conflict in the southeast of the last. In October 2014, Kazakhstan offered $1 to the International Committee of the Red Cross on humanitarian activity in Ukraine. In January 2015, to help humanitarian crisis, Kazakhstan directed $1 card of the help for southeast regions of Ukraine. The President Nazarbayev told about war in Ukraine. Fratricidal war brought true devastation to eastern Ukraine, and the general task is to stop their war, to strengthen independence of Ukraine and to provide territorial integrity of Ukraine. Experts consider that how the Ukrainian crisis developed, a relationship of Kazakhstan with the European Union will remain positive. It is considered that Nazarbayev's mediation is positively perceived by both Russia and Ukraine. On March 6, 2020, the concept of foreign policy for 2020-2030 was approved. The document determines by the main the following theses. Open, predictable and consistent foreign policy of the country which has progressive character and keeps the continuity on continuation of a course of the first president at a new stage of development of the country. Protection of human rights, development of humanitarian diplomacy and environmental protection. Advance of economic interests on the international scene, including on realization of state policy on attraction of investments. Maintenance of the international peace and safety. Development of regional and multilateral diplomacy which assumes, first of all, consolidation of mutually advantageous communications with key partners, Russia, China, the USA, the states of Central Asia and the European Union countries. Through multilateral structures, with the United Nations, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Commonwealths of Independent States and political reforms. In June 2019, at the initiative of the President of Kazakhstan Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, the National Council of Public Trust, Inc., which main objective is development of offers and recommendations about topical issues of state policy on the basis of extensive discussion with representatives of the public, political parties and civil society was created. In July of the same year, it was declared the concept of the hearing state, which has to react quickly and effectively to all constructive inquiries of citizens of the country. Besides, in the country, the law about parliamentary opposition, allowing representatives of other parties to hold the chairman's post in some parliamentary committees for the purpose of encouragement of alternative views and opinions, is adopted. The minimum number of the people necessary for registration of political party, according to the new law, is 20,000 people. The law about peaceful assemblies is adopted. A new law provides introduction of a conceptual framework that will allow to create such key concepts and forms of a peaceful assembly as picketing, demonstration, a procession, a meeting. A notifying order of holding meetings, instead of allowing, is entered. In the law, the status, the rights and duties of organizers, participants of peaceful assemblies, journalists are regulated. For increase in public safety, the President strengthened also punishment measures for crimes against the personality. Independent observers consider a situation with human rights in Kazakhstan bad. In the report of Human Rights Watch for 2015 across Kazakhstan, it is said that the country seriously limits freedom of assembly, words and religions. In 2019, the authorities imprisoned or fined hundreds of people and detained several thousands of people after the protest actions. Religion out of the state control. Critics of the government, including the oppositionist Maxim Bakiyev, remained in prison after unfair trials. In the middle of 2014, the new criminal and executive, criminal procedure and administrative codes and the new Trade Union Act containing norms which limit fundamental freedoms were adopted and are incompatible with the international standards. Tortures in places of detention remain a common practice. In the report of Human Rights Watch for 2016, it was noted that Kazakhstan took several significant steps for a solution of the problem of deterioration in a situation with human rights in 2015, paying special attention to economic development, but not political reforms. According to the report of the United States government published in 2014 in the country, the law doesn't demand from police to inform detainees that they have the right for the lawyer, and the police of it don't do. Human rights activists claimed that law enforcement officers dissuaded detainees from a meeting with the lawyer, collected proofs by preliminary interrogation before arrival of the lawyer of the detainee, and in certain cases used the corrupted lawyers for collecting proofs. Less than. Greater than. The law doesn't provide the adequate independent judicial system. Executive power sharply limits judicial independence. Prosecutors play a quasi-judicial role and have the right to stop performance of judgments. Corruption is shown at each stage of trial. Though judges are among the most highly paid public servants, lawyers and observers behind respect for human rights claim that judges, prosecutors and other officials extort bribes in exchange for favorable decisions on the majority of criminal cases. In global, the rating of the Index of the Rule of Law of the World Project of Justice for 2020, Kazakhstan took the 62nd place among 128 countries. The state received a good mark on an order and safety 39/128, and bad on restrictions of government powers 102/128. 2. The open government 81/128, and 2. Basic rights 100/128. Initiative of Rule of Law. American Bar Association has programs of training of specialists of the sector of justice in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has the biggest economy in Central Asia, generating 60% of GDP of the region. By estimates of the World Bank for 2019, the country takes the 42nd place in the rating of the countries on DDD. PPS. The 54th place on DDD. Face value. The 72nd place on DDD. Face value. Per capita. Kazakhstan was the first former Soviet republic which repaid all the debt to the International Monetary Fund for 7 years before term. The country took the third place, after China and Qatar, among 25 most dynamic economies of the first decade is the 21st century. The state entered the World Trade Organization in 2015. Supported by the high world prices for crude oil, indicators of GDP growth were from 8.9% to 13.5% during the period from 2000 to 2007, decreased to 1.3% in 2008 and 2009, then again grew since 2010. Other main export goods of Kazakhstan include wheat, textiles and livestock. Kazakhstan is the leading exporter of uranium. The country depreciated the currency for 19% in February 2014. One more 26% devaluation took place in August 2015. GDP growth in 2019 was 4.5%. In January 2020, GDP growth of Kazakhstan was 3.6%. In 2009, the government entered large-scale measures of support, such as recapitalization of banks and support of the sector of the real estate and agriculture, and also small and medium-sized enterprises. MESP. The total cost of the stimulating programs was $21 billion, or 20% of GDP of the country, and $4 billion were intended for stabilization of financial sector. During the global economic crisis, the economy of Kazakhstan was reduced by 1.2% in 2009, whereas annual growth rates increased to 7.5% and 5% in 2011 and 2012 respectively subsequently. In September 2002, Kazakhstan became the first country in the CIS which received the credit rating of investment level from large international rating agency. Economic growth in combination with the reforms of tax and financial sectors undertaken earlier considerably improved public financing from shortage level of the budget in 1999, equal 3.5% of GDP, to deficit of 1.2% of GDP in 2003. Revenues of the government grew from 19.8% of GDP in 1999 to 22.6% of GDP in 2001, but were reduced to 16.2% of GDP in 2003. In 2000, Kazakhstan adopted the new tax code, seeking to fix these achievements. Kazakhstan started implementation of the ambitious program of pension reform in 1998. As of April 1, 2020, pension assets were 11.7 trillion tenges. In the country of 11 accumulative pension funds. The Public Accumulative Pension Fund, the only public foundation, was privatized in 2006. The Uniform Financial Regulating Agency of the country controls and regulates the pension funds. The growing demand of the pension funds for qualitative investment points caused rapid development of the market of debt securities. The capital of the pension fund is invested almost only in corporate and government bonds, including the government of Kazakhstan on Eurobonds. The government of Kazakhstan studies the project on creation of the Uniform National Pension Fund and transfer on them of all accounts from the private pension funds. The National Bank introduced deposit insurance system within the campaign for strengthening of the banking sector. Because of problem and idle bad assets, the banking sector nevertheless risks to lose stability. Several large foreign banks have branches in Kazakhstan. In 2019, Kazakhstan attracted $25 billion direct foreign investments to the country. In 2013, Afenpasan quoted the words of the human rights activist and the lawyer Denis Devagu that in Kazakhstan there is an oil fund, but nobody knows how income is spent. The country was at the 39th place in the Index of Economic Freedom of 2020 published by Wall Street Journal and Heritage Foundation. Following the results of 2019, the deficit of the account of the current operations extended to more than $5.5 billion under a condition though decreased, but enough high prices of oil. $64 mine $71 for barrel. China is one of the main economic and trade partners of Kazakhstan. The railroads provide 68% of all freight and passenger traffic in more than 57% of the area of the country. As of 2017, there km of a track of 1520, 4200 km are electrified. The majority of the cities are connected by the railroad. High-speed trains go from Almaty, the most southern city, to Petropavlovsk, the most northern city, approximately in 18 hours. Kazakhstan Railroads (KRAI) is the national railway company. SOG cooperates with the French producer of Alstom locomotives in development of railway infrastructure of Kazakhstan. Alstom has more than 600 employees and 2 joint ventures with Kazad and its subsidiary in Kazakhstan. In July 2017, Alstom opened the first center of repair of locomotives in Kazakhstan. It is the only repair center in Central Asia and in the Caucasus. On May 31, 2017, in Astana, the most modern opened in Kazakhstan, the railway station Urlal. Opening of the station coincided with the beginning of work of the International Expo-2017 exhibition. According to Jest Kazakhstanskaya Zelezidorogi, the station of Kardam, it will be used by 54 trains a day and I am capable to serve 35,000 passengers a day. In Almaty there is a small system of the subway 11.3 km long. It is in the future planned to build the second and third lines of the subway. Second line will be crossed with the first line at stations of Alatau and Jibikzoli. In May 2011, construction of the second turn of the line of Almaty Subway 1 began. The general contractor Almaty Metrokirli. Now more than 300 m of tunnels on the project of expansion or dugout. Expansion includes 5 new stations and will connect the downtown of Almaty to Kolkaman in the suburbs. Its extent will be 8.62 km. Construction is divided into 3 stages. Addition of 2 stations will be the first stage. The current stage, Sayransky in Moscow, 2.7 km long. For more details see Almaty Subway. Also in the city there was a tram system from 10 lines operating from 1937 to 2015. The system of the Easy Subway of Nur Sultan is in a construction stage. There passed a lot of time, and in 2013 the project was thrown, but the agreement on his realization was signed on May 7, 2015. In the city of Ust-Kamenogorsk, the system of the tram park was opened between 1959 and 1978, and the tram was the popular type of transport before its closing in 2018. At the peak he had 6 routes, but as a result he had 4 routes in operation. He had the park from 50 working tram cars. Also in the city of Pavlodar there is a 86-kilometer tram network which began to work in 1965 with 20 regular and 3 special routes as of 2012. The network occupies 60% of the local market of public transport. It's at Horgoz East Gate Dry Port is one of the main dry ports of Kazakhstan for processing of Trans-Eurasian trains which travel more than 100 km between China and Europe. In Kazakhstan exists the 96th airport. Transit of freight and passenger air transportation between Europe and Asia is of great importance for the industry. In 2009 the European Commission blacklisted all the Kazakhstan airlines except for Air Astana airline. Since then Kazakhstan consistently takes measures for modernization and updating of the supervision of safety of flights. In 2016 the European bodies for safety of flights excluded all Kazakhstan airlines from the blacklist and compliances to the international standards obtained the sufficient evidence from the Kazakhstan Airlines and Committee of Civil Aviation. For 2017 the total length of a road network in the country is 95,409,000 km. Agriculture in 2019 made 4.5% of GDP of Kazakhstan. Grain, potatoes, grapes, vegetables, melons and livestock are the most important agricultural goods. Farmlands occupy more than card km. The available farmlands consist of card km, arable lands and km, pastures and haymakings. More than 80% of total area of the country belong to agricultural grounds, including nearly 70% occupy pastures. Arable lands take the second place on availability on one inhabitant. 1.5 hectares. Primary livestock products are dairy products, skin, meat and wool. The main grain crops of the country include wheat, barley, cotton and rice. Export of wheat, the main source of hard currency, is among the leading goods of the Kazakhstan export trade. So, in 2019 in Kazakhstan 17.4 million tons of grain were threshed, that is 14.3% less than in 2018. In agriculture of Kazakhstan there are still a lot of environmental problems because of poor control in the Soviet years. Kazakhstan is considered one of places where apple, in particular the wild ancestor of Malus domestica, arose. This tree meets in the wild nature in mountains of Central Asia, in the south of Kazakhstan, in Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Xinjiang in China to this day. Kazakhstan is the 9th in area country and the largest, not having an outlet to the sea. Today tourism isn't an important component of economy. As of 2018, tourism made 5.7% of GDP of Kazakhstan, and the government plans to enable a share for 8% by 2025. In terms of money, the indicator of 2018 is about 3.4 trillion tench. In 2018, the industry directly and indirectly provided more than 450,000 jobs in the country. The WEF put the country on the 81st place in the report for 2017, that is 4 positions higher in comparison with the previous period. In 2018, Kazakhstan was visited by 8.5 million foreign tourists. The Guardian describes tourism in Kazakhstan as extremely underdeveloped, despite appeal of impressive mountain, lake and desert landscapes of the country. High prices, shabby infrastructure, bad service, and logistic difficulties of travel in geographically huge, underdeveloped country belong to the factors interfering increase in number of visits of tourists. Even for locals, the trip to rest abroad can cost only a half of cost of rest in Kazakhstan. The Kazakhstan government, long time which is characterized as authoritative with permanent human rights violation and suppression of political opposition, started realization of an initiative under the name, the Concept of Development of the Tourist Industry of Kazakhstan till 2020. This initiative is directed to creation of 5 tourist clusters in Kazakhstan. City of Nur-Sultan, City of Almaty, East Kazakhstan, Turkestan and West Kazakhstan regions. She also assumes investments of $4 billion and creation of new jobs in the tourism industry by 2020. Kazakhstan offers a constant visa-free regime for a period of up to 90 days for citizens of Armenia, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, Russia and Ukraine, and for a period of up to 30 days for citizens of Argentina, Azerbaijan, Serbia, the Republic of Korea, Tajikistan, Turkey and Uzbekistan and others. The country set a visa-free regime for citizens of 57 countries, including the countries of the European Union and ODE, the USA, the EU, the Republic of Korea, Australia and New Zealand. Large resorts: Sarıgaş, Kapşage, Zarenda, Moyilda, Karkarolinsk, Bayanol, Alakal. Alpine skiing: Chimbulik, Tabagang, Elekta, Ikulek, Akanyansharan. The most interesting place for tourists is the so-called Valley for MK. Also, mountaineering is rather well developed. Fishing. The government set the objectives the transition to green economy in Kazakhstan happened by 2050. According to forecasts, the green economy will increase GDP by 3% and will create more than card new jobs. The government of Kazakhstan established the prices of the energy made from renewable sources. The price is over $1 each on the energy made by wind power plants. It was established at the level of 22.68 tenges, $0.12. Cost is $1 each, made by small hydroelectric power stations, makes 16.71 tenges, $0.09. And by OGA's installations minus 32.23 tenges, $0.18. During independence of Kazakhstan, $330 billion foreign investments from 120 countries are attracted. According to the United States Department of State, the country is considered the owner of the best investment climate in the region. In 2002, the country became the first sovereign state in the former Soviet Union which received the credit rating of investment level from the International Agency of Credit Ratings. The direct foreign investments, DIAD, play a more important role in national economy than in the majority of other former Soviet republics. The President Nazarbayev signed the law on tax benefits for assistance to direct foreign investments, which includes 10 years exemption from corporate tax, 8 years exemption from a property tax and 10 years freezing of the majority of other taxes. Other incentives include return of capital investments at the rate to 30% after input of a production object in operation. The President of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, Suma Chakrabarti, together with the President of Kazakhstan Nursultan Nazarbayev, headed Council of Foreign Investors of Kazakhstan. In May 2014, the EBRD and the government of Kazakhstan created Partnership for Activization of Process of Reforms in Kazakhstan for the purpose of cooperation with the international financial institutions to direct $2.7 billion provided to the government of Kazakhstan to important sectors of economy of Kazakhstan. Partnership will stimulate investments and to advance reforms in the country. As of May 2014, Kazakhstan, from the moment of finding of independence in 1991, attracted $190 billion gross foreign investments and is in the lead in the CIS countries on the volume of the attracted PE per capita. One of the factors attracting direct foreign investments is political stability of the country. According to the report of the World Bank, Kazakhstan is among 40% of the countries of the world which are considered as the politically stablest and free from violence. Kazakhstan was also highly appreciated in survey conducted by the Ernst & Young Company in 2014. According to the Research A 2014, the investor confidence to the Kazakhstan potential also is at record-breaking high level. 47. 3% of respondents expect that Kazakhstan will become more attractive within the next 3 years. High level of economic, political and social stability and the competitive corporate tax rate in Kazakhstan were called the main reasons for his appeal. In the review of investment policy of ODE for 2017, it is noted that big steps were taken to open opportunities for foreign investors and to improve policy to attract PE. On October 5, 2014, Kazakhstan issued bonds for a period of 10 and 30 years for $2.5 billion. That was the country's first international sales in US dollars since 2000. Kazakhstan sold 10-year dollar bonds for the sum of $1.5 billion to receive 1.5 percentage points above the average level and $1 billion a 30-year debt for 2 percentage points above the average level. The country submitted applications for $11 billion. Banking of the Republic of Kazakhstan endured a pronounced cycle of rises and recessions for the ODE years. After several years of rapid growth in the middle of the ODE years, the bank industry failed in 2008. Several large banking groups, including BTA Bank, Just Kazakhstan Engineering and Allianz Bank, soon declared a default. Since then the industry was reduced and was restructured. At the same time the system-wide credits were reduced to 39% of DDD in 2011 from 59% in 2007. Though the banking system of Russia and Kazakhstan has several common features, there are also some fundamental distinctions. Banks in Kazakhstan endured the long period of political stability and economic growth. Together with rational approach to bank and financial policy, it allowed to bring a banking system of Kazakhstan to higher level of development. Bank technologies and qualification of personnel in Kazakhstan are higher than in Russia. From a negative side, former stability in Kazakhstan arose because of concentration practically of all political power in hands of one person, a key factor in any assessment of system or country risk. There is a probability of serious disorders when the power passes into new hands. In 2018, the total area of housing in Kazakhstan was 347.4 molnam. For 2016, 2017 and 2018, 403.4 thousand houses, from them 99.5 thousand individual and over 303,000 apartments and multi-story buildings are put into operation. Nearly a third of apartment houses is more senior than 50 years, that is, are constructed till 1970. About 65% are put into operation more than 25 years ago. In 2018, the living space on one Kazakhstan citizen made 21.6 m. On November 11, 2014, at the enlarged meeting of Political Council of Nur Otan Party, the President of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, made the unexpected message to the nation in Nur-Sultan, having presented to N. Arla with the Kazakh a way to the future. The new economic policy, which means large state investments into infrastructure within the next several years. Policy and other, it is accepted as the preventive measures necessary for ensuring steady growth of economy in the conditions of modern global economic and geopolitical challenges, such as 25% reduction of prices of oil, reciprocal sanctions between the West and Russia because of Ukraine, and the policy covers all aspects of economic growth, including finance, the industry and social security, but especially emphasizes investments into development of infrastructure and construction. Considering recent decline in income from export of raw materials, funds will be allocated from National Fund of Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan achieved the objectives to enter in top -50 the most competitive countries in 2013, but fell by the 55th place in 2019. In 2013, Kazakhstan advanced other states of the CIS almost on all key indicators of competitiveness, including institutes, infrastructure, the macroeconomic environment, the higher education and vocational training, efficiency of commodity market, labor market development, development of the financial market, technological readiness, the amount of the market, complexity of business and innovations. Light was exclusive in category of healthcare and primary education. For January 1, 2020, the number of the acting subjects of small and average business MESP was 1.3 million units. It is registered -1.6 million. From 2010 to 2017, the amount of active subjects of MESP grew from 2. This growth was observed by all types of business, except for legal entities of average business. Following the results of the third quarter 2018, the number of the acting individual entrepreneurs was 1.3 million people, -6.9% more than the previous year. By the beginning of 2019 in Kazakhstan, 999.7 thousand individual entrepreneurs, only 0.6% more than last year, were registered. In the 2013-2015 there was more than 1 million. The most large number occupied in subjects of SP. The first quarter 2019. In Almaty and Nur-Sultan, 196.4 thousand people and 121,000 people respectively. These regions are in the lead also on production. In Almaty -217.4 billion tenges, in Nur-Sultan -129.7 billion tenges. Closes top 3 on number occupied in IP East Kazakhstan region. 113.9 thousand people. On production, on the third place the Karaganda region -79 billion tenges. Among measures which are supposed to be accepted in 2020 for support small and micro business, the ban on checks and exemption from a tax for 3 years. In the rating of business of the World Bank for 2020, Kazakhstan took the 25th place in the world and became the best country in the world on protection of the rights of minority investors. In 2019, the industry share in DDD of Kazakhstan made 27.2%. Since 1991, development of the industry of Kazakhstan developed under the influence of the external and internal factors which made ambiguous impact on the course of reforms and a condition of the industry. During the period from 1991 to 1995, decrease in industrial outputs was observed. Since 1996 till present, except for crisis 1998, increase in production was provided. In 1991, the greatest share in the industrial output of Kazakhstan was occupied. Food and light industry, mechanical engineering and metalworking, non-ferrous metallurgy and fuel industry. Today in structure of production over 60% of the share of oil and gas production, metallurgical industry, electricity generation. Mostly overworking factories and steel works are concentrated in the north and the northeast of the republic. Cities of Semi, Nur-Sultan, Petropavlovsk and Aktobe. In southern and central Kazakhstan, the most important industrial centers is Shymkent, the chemical, light and food industry, metallurgy. Almaty, the light and food industry, mechanical engineering. And Taraz, mechanical engineering, the chemical and food industry. In the country there are rich oil fields such as Kashagan, Tengiz, Uzan, Karakaganak and others. Nearly half of the total amount of oil extracted in the country is the share of three large-scale deposits on the northern Caspian Sea that is Kazakhstan by one of the leading countries of the world on reserves of crude oil. Existence of considerable natural resources and stable economic policy caused creation of favorable investment climate in the country and as a result, development of the national extracting and processing industry. At the same time, owing to the objective and subjective reasons, the structure of the industry of the Republic was extremely deformed and doesn't correspond to structure of final public requirements that led to considerable lag of production of the final products. To this day, the specific weight of the extracting industries is considerable. There are no many types of processing industries, etc. In 2005, the World Bank included Kazakhstan in the list of hotspots of corruption on an equal basis with Angola, Bolivia, Kenya, Libya and Pakistan. In 2019, Kazakhstan took the low place in the index on corruption perception. The 113th place from 180 countries. And the World Economic Forum called corruption the most serious problem in business in the country. For 2017, it was specified in the report of OED on Kazakhstan that in Kazakhstan the laws concerning public service, the judicial system, tools for prevention of corruption, access to information and prosecution for corruption were reformed. In 2011, during the international investigation in banks of Switzerland, the Kazakhstan assets for the sum of $48 million were confiscated. Law enforcement agencies of the USA believed that these means represented the bribes paid by the American oil companies to the Kazakhstan officials in exchange for the rights for exploration and production of oil in Kazakhstan. The banknote of 1,000 tenges. December 2013. Submitting rock drawings by Turkic soldiers. Currency of Kazakhstan since 1993 is the tench. Those. He is divided into 100 symbols. According to the nomenclature of ISO 4217 GZ. Kazakhstan has the most advanced banking system in Central Asia. Total amount of cash in circulation for February 2020 was 20.794 trillion tench. Following the results of 2019, the volume of non-cash payments according to the cards used in the territory of the country was 13305 billion tenges. 73% fall on payment on the internet. The country left a ruble zone of one of the last in the former Soviet Union. The national currency was introduced into circulation on November 15, 1993 in the ratio by 1 tenj minus 500 rubles of the USSR. The name tenj comes from medieval Turkic silver coins of tenj or tang, from which there was a name of the Russian coin, denga, and a word money. Modern tenges carried on tradition of the largest cities of medieval Kazakhstan of Otrar and Taraz, where own coins began to mint in the 13th century. The first money of sovereign Kazakhstan was printed by the oldest English company, Harrison and Sons. A banknote factory opened in the country in 1995. Today the Kazakhstani tenge, having 18 degrees of protection, is among the most protected currencies of the world. Now in the territory of Kazakhstan, banknotes advantage are in use. Banknotes -200, 500, 1000, 2000, 5000, and tenges. Coins -1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 and 200 tenges. In 2017, the largest volume of export of the Kazakhstan products went to Italy. 17.9% by assessment for 2017. People's Republic of China, 11.9%. And the Netherlands, 9.8%. The leading importers of goods to Kazakhstan were Russia, 38.9% by assessment for 2017. The People's Republic of China, 16%. And Germany, 5%. The share of the USA in the total amount of the import going to Kazakhstan made about 4%. Following the results of 2019, the cost of the imported goods and services was $38.4 billion. Export was estimated at $57.7 billion. The main components of the Kazakhstan export are oil and oil products, natural gas, ferrous metals, chemicals, cars, grain, wool, meat, coal. Import appears in machines and the equipment, metal products, food. Ishi, part of armed forces of Kazakhstan, was inherited from the Soviet armed forces of the Turkestan military district. These divisions became a kernel of new army of Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan got all parts of the 40th Army. They form a 32nd Army. And a part of the 17th Army building, including 6 overland divisions, bases of storage, the 14th and 35th Airborne Brigades, 2 rocket crews, 2 artillery regiments, and a large number of the equipment which was taken out from the territory of the Urals after signing of the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe. Since the end of the 20th century, the Kazakhstan army focused on expansion of quantity of the armored parts. Since 1990, the number of armored divisions increased from 500 to 1613 in 2005. The Air Force of Kazakhstan consists generally of planes of Soviet period, including 41 MiG-29, 44 MiG-31, 37 Su-24 and 60 Su-27. On the Caspian Sea, the small navies remain. Military expenses for 2019 made 1.6% of VVV. Most of men are called up for military service at the age of 18, 27 years and 12 months serve. The appeal passes 2 times a year, during the periods from April to June and from October to December. Annually, military age is reached by over 120,000 young men. Kazakhstan sent 49 military engineers to Iraq for assistance of a mission of the USA in Iraq after invasion. During the Second War in Iraq, the Kazakhstan troops neutralized 4 million men. And other explosives helped to provide medical care to more than 5,000 dicks of the coalition and civilians, cleaned 6718 waters. The Kazakhstan Committee of National Security, CNIS, was created on July 13, 1992. It includes service of internal security, military counterintelligence, the border service, several command divisions and foreign intelligence service. Serber. The last is considered the most important part of NAN. Its chairman, Karim Masimov. Since 2002, the government of Kazakhstan, Steppe Eagle, stages joint tactical peacekeeping exercises. The Steppe Eagle is focused on creation of the coalitions and gives two member countries an opportunity to work together. During the exercises, the Steppe Eagle, the peacekeeping Kazakh battalion, acts as a part of multinational forces under uniform command within versatile peacekeeping operations with participation of NATO and the United States Armed Forces. In December 2013, Kazakhstan declared that it will direct officers for support of peacekeeping forces of the United Nations in Haiti, Western Sahara, Côte d'Ivoire and Liberia. The Kazakhstan police are under jurisdiction of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. MIA. For communication with police in Kazakhstan, it is necessary to gather 102 from any phone number. The number of staff of law enforcement bodies, on statistical data of the former head of the Ministry of Internal Affairs Kalmukhanbek Kasimov, reached 86,000 people at the beginning of 2019. According to official data for 2018, one police officer fell on 221 citizens, that exceeds an average European value 1 to 300-400. The Ministry of Internal Affairs is the reform department in the system of the law enforcement agencies existing since the Soviet period. According to independent sources, in the country there were no serious incentives for democracy, therefore the model of control over society through the militarized department was kept. All above-mentioned reforms were directed to the Ministry of Internal Affairs to providing observance of imperious opportunities. In recent years, the state focused attention to hardware of police, supported police officers and their families through granting preferential housing and a social package. In this sense, Kazakhstan is a police state. Researchers are still generally concentrated in the largest city of Kazakhstan and the former capital of Alma-Ata, where 52% of research associates live. Public researchers are generally limited to institutes, and the universities make only a symbolical contribution. Research institutes receive financing from national research councils under the auspices of the Ministry of Education and Science. However, their products are, as a rule, not connected with requirements of the market. In the business sector, only the few industrial enterprises conduct researches independently. Expenses on innovations in Kazakhstan more than doubled during the period from 2010 to 2011, having made 235 billion tenges. About $1.6 billion. Or about 1.1% of GDP. About 11% of total amount were spent for research and development. It is comparable from about 40-70% of expenses on innovations in the developed countries. Its increase was caused by the sharp growth of design of products and introduction of new services and methods of production during this period, to the detriment of acquisition of machines and the equipment, which traditionally made the main part of the Kazakhstan expenses on innovations. Costs of training made only 2% of expenses on innovations, that it is much less than in the developed countries. In December 2012, the President Nursultan Nazarbayev announced the strategy of Kazakhstan till 2050.
Till 2050, the new industries in such areas as mobile technologies, multimedia, nano and space technologies, robotics, genetic engineering and alternative power engineering are planned.
Development of the enterprises of the food industry for the purpose of transformation of the country in largely regional exporter of beef, dairy and other agricultural products as planned.
Replacement of low-cost, water-capacious grades of cultures by vegetable, olive and fodder products. Within transition to green economy, by 2030 it is planned to sow 15% of acreage by means of water conservation technologies.
Creation of experimental agrarian and innovative clusters and development of the study against age-drought genetically modified cultures is planned.
Strategy Kazakhstan 2050 establishes by the purpose allocation by 2050 of 3% of DDD for research and development for development of new high-tech sectors. In the international database of Bureau of Censuses of the USA, the population of Kazakhstan is 18.9 million people. July 2019. While in sources of the Union assessment, as of 2019, makes 18,551,427 people. According to official assessment, as of January 1, 2021, the population made 18,877,128 people, including city minus people, 59.06%. Rural minus 7,727,429 people, 40.94%.
Assessment of population of 2009 for 6.8% exceeds number above which it was reported during the last census since January 1999.
The reduction of number which began after 1989 was stopped and, probably, turned back. Men and women make 48.3% and 51.7% of the population respectively. The country takes the 64th place in the list of the countries on population.
Average density minus 6.74 people/km.
184th place. According to data for the beginning of 2021, Kazakhs made 69.01% of the population. The Russian minus 18.42%, Uzbeks minus 3.29%, Uyghurs minus 1.48%, Ukrainians minus 1.36%, Tatars minus 1.06%, and others. Some minorities, such as Ukrainians, Koreans, Volga German, 1.1%. Chechens, Meskhetian Turks and political opponents of the mode were deported to Kazakhstan in 1930th and 1940th by Joseph Stalin. In the country there were some of the largest Soviet labor camps. Considerable Russian immigration was also connected with the Virgin campaign and the Soviet space program during Nikita Khrushchev's era.
In 1989, ethnic Russians made 37.8% of the population, and Kazakhs made the majority only in 7 of 20 regions of the country.
Till 1991 there were about 1 million Germans, mainly descendants Volga region, deported to the country during World War II. After disintegration of the Soviet Union, their most part emigrated to Germany. Most of Diks of the Greek minority emigrated to Greece. From 1990th years there is a continuous emigration of many Russians, Germans, Ukrainians and representatives of other people. At the same time, active immigration of ethnic Kazakhs to Kazakhstan from Uzbekistan, China, Mongolia, Russia, Turkmenistan, Turkey and other countries is observed. The specified circumstances together with high birth rate among Kazakhs made them the biggest ethnos in the country. Kazakhstan officially is the bilingual country. The Kazakh. Entering 7 Turkic languages of Kazakh. With 83.1% of the population understand as the status state, while Russian, which is understood by most of Kazakhstan citizens, is announced by official and is usually used in business, government and interethnic communication, though Kazakh gradually forces at them. The languages of minorities widespread in the country include Uzbek, Ukrainian, Uyghur, Kyrgyz and Tatar. The government declared in January 2015 that the Latin alphabet will replace Cyrillics as the system of the letter for Kazakh by 2025. In 2017-2018 academic year, from 3 million pupils of schools of the Republic, 2 million studied at Kazakh, 900,000 in Russian, 100,000 in other languages. In the speech about resignation, Nazarbayev in 2019 foretold that in the future the people of Kazakhstan will speak 3 languages: Kazakh, Russian and English. Secondary general education and is obligatory, and the level of literacy of adult population is 99.8%. On average, these statistical data are equal as to women and men of Kazakhstan. Education consists of 3 main stages. Primary education. 1. 4 classes. Primary education is preceded by 1 year of preschool education. The basic incomplete. 5. 9 classes. And the senior secondary education. 10. 12 classes. Divided into continuous, the general and professional. Professional education ordinary lasts 3-4 years. The specified levels can be observed in one establishment or in different. For example, at elementary school, then in average. Secondary professional education is offered in special professional schools, lyceums and colleges. In the higher education system there are universities, academies, institutes and conservatories. There are at these institutions 3 main levels. The basic higher education, providing bases of the chosen area of training and leading to award of degree of the bachelor. Specialized higher education, upon termination of which students gain the diploma of the expert. And the scientific and pedagogical higher education, leading to receiving degree of the master. Post-degree education proceeds to academic degrees of the candidate of science and doctor of science. Unemployment among adult population made 4.8% and 3.9% among youth 15-28 years. In 2019. In 2020, increase in it by 1% is predicted. Religious freedoms are guaranteed by Article 39 of the Constitution of Kazakhstan, which says, it isn't allowed in any form restriction of the rights and freedoms of citizens on political motives.
Article 14 forbids discrimination based on religion, and Article 19 guarantees that everyone has the right to define and specify or not to specify the national, party and religious affiliation.
Researchers of the American Institute of Gallup show that the level of religiousness of the population, 43%, the lowest in the region of Central Asia. In general, in the world, Kazakhstan shares on this indicator the place between Slovenia and Switzerland. Islam, the most widespread religion in the country following her own degree of prevalence, is Orthodox Christianity.
After decades of suppression of religion during existence of the Soviet Union, finding of independence of Kazakhstan led to growth of ethnic identity, which part was a religion.
Practice of freedom of religion was established that led to growth of religious activity of the population and fast increase in number of the religious communities and cult constructions.
Hundreds of mosques, churches and other constructions were built within several years, and the number of religious associations increased from 670 in 1990 up to 4170 in 2010.
Some data show that not denominational Muslims make the majority, while others point that most of Muslims in the country are Sunnites of Hanafitsky madhab. Ethnic Kazakhs, who make over 60% of the population, and also ethnic Uzbeks, Uyghurs and Tatars treat them. Less than 1% are Sunnites of Shafi'i madhab. Generally Chechens. There are also some Muslim Laboma and Mahdi. In total there are 2550 mosques. The beginning of 2017. All of them enter the Spiritual Association of Muslims of Kazakhstan, headed by the Supreme Mufti. Independent mosques are closed forcibly. Eid al-Adha is recognized as a national holiday in the country. A quarter of the population, Orthodox Christians, including ethnic Russians, Ukrainians and Belarusians. Other Christian groups include Catholics, Greco-Catholic, Lutherans, Presbyterians, Seventh-day Adventist Church, Methodologists, Mennonites, Pentecostals, Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, members of Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons, and followers of the doctrine, Christian Science. In total there are 294 Orthodox churches, the 109th Catholic churches and more than 495 Protestant churches and houses of worship. 2017. Orthodox Christmas is recognized in Kazakhstan as a national holiday. Other religious groups include Judaism, Baka Hinduism, the Buddhism and others. According to data of a census of 2009, Christians outside Slavic and German ethnic groups aren't enough.
According to the report of the USA on freedom of worship in the world in 2017, Kazakhstan significantly limits it.
In an introductory part of the report it is said that, in the conditions of suppression of disagreement and dissent, when even secular civic activists are exposed to charges of terrorism, the government continued to break seriously freedom of worship. In the document it is specified that during this period 20 people were sentenced for peaceful expression of religious beliefs by prison terms.
In the country it is legislatively forbidden to create political movements on the basis of religious beliefs, that is made for prevention of interethnic and interreligious perpetitions a lump.
8.
Strategy Kazakhstan-2030 defines health of citizens as one of the main long-term priorities of development of the state. In it, the President Nazarbayev pointed the direction of reforms in the industry to improvement of quality of medical services and development of a high-tech healthcare system. The average expected life expectancy at the birth is more than 8 years lower than an average value on ODE, and at the regional level inequality on key indicators of health continues to remain.
Indicators of infantile and maternal incidence and mortality, though below than in other republics of Central Asia, in Kazakhstan are much higher than in the Western countries, because of unbalanced food, environmental pollution and inadequate prenatal leaving.
While sanatoria and hospitals exist in many places, they provide the level of medical care resolutely below that which is considered the standard in the West. In the country, the low infectious and parasitic diseases mortality rate is noted, though the incidence of tuberculosis represents very disturbing problem. In structure of diseases, chronic diseases, and indicators of mortality caused by them in Kazakhstan significantly exceed similar indicators in the countries which are dicks of ore. Since finding of independence, a number of the reforms directed to modernization of a system of providing medical services by means of change of balance of advantage of primary health care and encouragement of autonomy and diversification of forms of ownership was carried out.
Despite it, in the sphere of providing medical services, the dominant position of hospitals still remains. An excessively high level of hospitalization concerning the diseases responding to outpatient treatment such as asthma and diabetes is noted. Today in a healthcare system, diffusion of responsibility is observed, and not enough attention is paid to development of such services and programs which could facilitate effectively reduction of the current lawsuits of diseases, especially chronic diseases. The system of providing medical services remains shattered, and access to them is at a loss owing to limitation of the available medical shots and the modern equipment, especially outside big cities.
By the standards of old, in Kazakhstan the low level of the state investments into healthcare remains that generates big costs for patients in the form of the informal payments, which are in addition complicating access to medical care.
In 2015 in the Republic there were about 765 medical institutions. According to preliminary data for 2016, the number of workers of health sector in the country was about 252,000, including 74600 doctors and experts of an average length. In 2016 there were hospital beds, 4.9 beds on 1,000 inhabitants. Kazakhstan annually spends about 3.5% of GDP for a healthcare system. The expected life expectancy of Kazakhstan citizens in calculations of 2020 reaches 72 years. The country is in the 42nd place in the world on coefficient of maternal mortality and on the 79th in coefficient infantile. Social security of the population in the country is assigned to the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. The system of social protection include the following elements: welfare payments, obligatory social insurance, provision of pensions, the guaranteed medical care, protection of motherhood and childhood, ensuring access to free education, to the general and professional, social help. Since January 1, 2020, the model of the state volume of free medical care is introduced. Within it, the help is provided to all citizens, or Omana and foreigners without nationality who are constantly living in Kazakhstan.
According to data of Committee on Statistics, as of July-September 2019 in Kazakhstan there were about 4.5% of people of all population of the country with incomes below the poverty line.
In 2020 about 7% of people with the given salaries are expected. In the report of the World Bank published in the fall of 2018, it is said that if to use the highest the poverty line admitted to the organizations which as a rule, applied to the countries with income level above an average such as Kazakhstan, then poverty level I fell in the country from about 65% 2001 up to about 8.5% in 2017. But meanwhile the set of problems remains.
Kazakhstan is still vulnerable to economic shocks which periodically set reverse motion to achievements of the country on reduction of lack of money. During the periods of low economic growth or recession as, for example, in 2005 and 2013-2016, many people appear below the poverty line.
The situation with her improved only after restoration of growth in the next years. If to use the highest poverty line, the country didn't return to that level which was reached in 2013, it is noted in the report. The Kazakh performer shows long-term horse heritage within the gala concert during the opening ceremony of the Central Asian Peacekeeping Battalion.
Before the Russian colonization, Kazakhs had advanced culture based on their nomadic cattle breeding economy.
Islam was entered into the country with arrival of Arabs in the 8th century. Originally he was fixed in the southern parts of Turkestan and extended to the north. Samanida helped religion to take roots thanks to missionary work. In the subsequent the Golden Horde continued to extend Islam among tribes in the region within the 14th century. Kanish Satpayev, one of founders Methyl-geniuses of Soviet period, chief defender and the first president of Academy of Sciences of Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is the homeland for a large number of outstanding authors of literature, science and philosophy. Abay Kunanbayev, Mukhtar Ayazov, Kobit Musrapov, Kanish Satpayev, Mukhtar Shakhanov, Sakin Saifalin, Jambil Jabayev and many others.
The British Encyclopedia defined the Kazakh literature as set of literature, both the oral and written, made in Kazakh by the Kazakh people Central Asia. The Kazakh literature extends from the modern territory of Kazakhstan, including also the era of the Kazakh Sur recognized by Kazakhs, the territory near the Russian Empire and the Kazakh Khanate.
There is coincidence to several complementary subjects, including literature of the Turkic tribes inhabiting Kazakhstan during history, and the literature written by ethnic Kazakhs. According to the Chinese written sources of the 6th-8th centuries, the Turkic tribes of Kazakhstan had oral poetic tradition. This tradition came from earlier periods and was transferred by bards, professional storytellers and musical performers. Traces of tradition are traced on the oak and written stone sculptures dated the 5th-7th centuries ad which describe Kultagin's government and Bilge Hanna, two early Turkic governors. Kagan. Among Kazakhs the bard was first of all, though isn't exclusive, a male profession. Beginning at least since the 17th century, the Kazakh bards could be divided into two main categories. Without creating zhirsha which transferred works by others, as a rule, and adding own original works. And Akins who improvised or created the verses, stories or songs. There were several types of works, such as didactic terms, elegiki to a tolga and epikira. The sources of such stories are often unknown, most of them were connected with the bards of recent or more distant past who presumably created or transferred them, by then, when the most part of the Kazakh poetry and prose was for the first time written down in the second half of the 19th century. There are significant stylistic differences between the works for the first time created in the 19th century and the works dated by earlier periods, but which aren't documented till the 21st century, such as to attributed such bards of the 16th and 17th centuries as Ashubang and Uspambajira, and even to such bards of the 15th century as Chalkiyas and Asankaji.
Among other famous bards, Kashchiganjira, Jaimbitjira, Aktambardijira and Bukhartuajira of Kalkamanula, who was the advisor of Abilahana.
Targan and Alpams, two most known examples of the Kazakh literature which were registered in the 19th century. The book by my grandfather Korkut and Oguzhan, the most known Turkic heroic legends. Originally created near the 9th century, they passed from father to son in an oral form. These legendary legends were written down by the Turkish authors in the 14th, 16th centuries.
The outstanding role in development of modern literary Kazakh belongs to Abay Kunanbayeva, whose works in many respects contributed to the development of the Kazakh national culture. The main work of Abay are the Words of Edification, the philosophical treatise and the collection of verses where it criticizes colonial policy of Russia and urges other Kazakhs to accept education and literacy. The important role in development of intellectual and political life of Kazakhs of the beginning of the 20th century was played by literary magazines, AKAP.
It was published from 1911 to 1915 in Arabic and Kazakh. It was published from 1913 to 1918. The earliest dwellings and settlements of settled tribes were in the central, northern, western and east Kazakhstan. A.H. Nargilan called Kazakhstan the most densely populated country of an era of bronze. The 18th centuries B.C. The dwelling of patriarchal family of the time represented the building up to 200 square meters consisting of several rooms. However, at the beginning of the first millennium B.C., appeared several types of the mobile dwelling connected by historians with Saksky tribes. Because of insufficient study, quite often all types of the mobile dwelling, from a tent to polygonal fellings, united the general term yurta. The invention and distribution of a yurta belonged to the middle of the first millennium. Yasuni and Kanyu, direct successors of cultural traditions of Jews, their construction culture developed within 700 years. Till the 5th century of our era. A huge number of barrows of Asunsky time was built on places of winter and summer Kachevia on a current of the rivers which are flowing down from hillsides. In the ancient settlement Chirakrabot, which was in Janadaria's pool, 2 mausoleums relating to the 4-2 centuries B.C. and a memorial construction Y. Nola-2 were dug up. Due to the formation of the Turkic Kaghanate in architecture, there were important processes which had an impact on formation of traditional types of the memorial constructions, with little changes which reached our days. So, funeral constructions of prior-tasty Turkic peoples, timbered with the conic or tent arches, on a new place and in new conditions reproduced already in brick designs. Very noticeable development was reached by construction of buildings of cult and civil character. Lux palaces, sanctuaries, palace complexes, etc. Palaces of citadels Kyriktob, Babada Aktob, Taraz, Kulan, Lugovo. A quarter sanctuary on Kakmardane, Barakdeh, the Akurtazlok Palace and others, built mainly in the 7th-9th centuries, belong to their number.
The turn of the 14th-15th centuries in Kazakhstan was noted by impressive construction of the mausoleum of Hadi Ahmad Yasavi in Turkestan, result of an organic combination and merge of art and constructive traditions of architecture of Transoxiana to the Kazakh ways of the organization of functional structure of buildings.
The architecture of the mausoleum had a huge impact on further development of national architecture of Kazakhstan, remaining subject to imitation for many centuries. Since the 15th century, the new stage of development of monumental architecture connected with education and development of the Kazakh Khanate begins. The architecture of mausoleums of Robi and Sultanbegim had an impact on development of architecture of the next eras, under the influence of which since the 16th century in architecture there is a big variety of types, especially memorial and cult constructions, and also there was an increase in volumes of construction business. The idea of centralization and strengthening of consciousness of the Kazakh people promoted strengthening of original lines of a national originality of monuments of architecture. On volume spatially creation of composition dome mausoleums of this period can be divided into portal, centric and dome and tower. It is possible to carry the Soransky Tower, portal and dome mausoleums of Okshiat, Asanata to the largest monuments of the 16th century, Zhunasata, Zalanashata, Mulkalan, Kisan, Akshora, Ashtam, Octahedral, and Anonymous. To the south of Ahmad Yasavi's mausoleum. And also East Bath in Turkestan, mausoleums of the Kazakh Khans Janibek and Kasim in the Shed. In the second half of the 17th century, the impact on the Kazakh lands of east neighbors, Kalmyks, amplified. At the end of the 17th century, Zanhars seized Semirakium and resumed offensive at the southern Kazakhstan. It led to penetration into some regions of East Kazakhstan and Semiraki Buddhist culture elements. Construction of so-called Ablakitsky chamber and 7 chambers in the 17th century, the Lemaistsky building and the mausoleum 2 acts at the beginning of the 18th century demonstrates to it. In the second half of the 18th century, construction of large memorial constructions in the southern regions of the country was resumed. Karashashan, Zhunasate's portal and dome mausoleums are considered as traditional. However, also 2 monuments a little different on the composition are known. Eksin, built in 10 kilometers to the west of Taraz, and the mausoleum Uvanas in the north of the southern Kazakhstan area, confirming emergence of one more type of memorial constructions.
In the period of the beginning of the 20th century, formation of the main types of the nomadic dwelling by functions, main of which the birth of the Kazakh yurta with a pronounced national originality and regional features comes to the end.
Dwellings on the cultural and community conditions are divided into 4 main groups.
Yurta of administrative and public nature of a rate guest.
Kanaka. The main inhabited. The head of the family, joint stock company. A usual yurta of separate family, newlyweds. Otatu a kuma. A yurta marching. Zoli, braids, a trigger and a blasha. And yurtas economic and household. For cooking and storage of products, the expert. Yurtas rates guest, inhabited summer yurtas on the architectural artly to construction are divided into Kypchaksky, Kazakh, and Kalmyk, Torgatsky. Began distribution and development in Kazakhstan.
The Kazakh type of a yurta with a spherical covering was finally created in the beginning of the 19th century. The Kalmyk type remained about one today.
Thus, in nomadic society of Kazakhstan, the architectural and art thought developed in specific conditions, was directed to creation of type of the dwelling which would be easy, strong, magnificent and useful. The separate family had, as a rule, several yurts. At the end of the 19th century in the Russian architecture, including in Kazakhstan, the modernist style, essentially new style architectural direction appeared. The special scope was reached during this period by construction in the cities of Kazakhstan of the most different types of public buildings. Administrative and managerial character, cultural and educational, hospital and improving, spectacular and entertaining institutions, dining rooms and restaurants, hotel, transport industrial complexes, the majority of which weren't known in Kazakhstan earlier. With independence finding, the architecture appeared at the new level of development. Transfer of the capital attracted architects from around the world. Bayterek's author in Nur Sultan Isaac Mirza Rustembekov, for which he was awarded a set of awards.
To the middle of the 1920th years in the country there were only amateur theatrical companies, the most known of which were Semipalatinsk and Theatre of the Orenburg Kazakh Institute of National Education. On the basis of the last, in January 1926 in Kizil-Hord, the first professional Kazakhstan theatre where M.
Azovs, Shannon S. Kazhamkalaf K. Konishpeyev K. Jandarbekev worked was open. In the 1930th years in the Republic a number of new theatres appears. In 1937 in Kizil-Hord the Korean Musical and Drama Theatre was open. In 1937 the Kazakh theatre became academic, and a number of actors were entitled Peoples and Honored Artists of the Republic. Regional theatres, theatres of amateur performances continued to develop. Fame was gained by actors Shens Aymanov S. Kazhamkalaf E. Umerzakov K. Karmisov 10. Bukiva. There began artistic activity 1. Noge BFN. Zantarin and many others. Cultural life of Kazakhstan was the 1950th years in the second half of 1940 under strict ideological control which cornerstone the dogmatic ideas of culture role stated in A Short Course of History of the All-Union Communist Party. Bolsheviks, where cultural construction was perceived as simple summation of separate types of cultural activity were expansion of school construction, growth of number of higher educational institutions, cultural and educational work, etc. And the main thing was communication of culture with policy as guarantees of invincibility of socialism. The theatre prepared G. Mustafan performance, Millionaire, the first of the Kazakh plays about life of modern collective farmers for the 30th anniversary of the Kazakh Tsar, and until the end of the year carried out statements of the performances Abay, Shasti of P. Pavlenko and Taming Obstinate W. Shakespeare. The regional Russian dramatic theatre during 1950 carried out statements of plays, Khrushchenko of 1. Stock. Others Shadow of K. Semenev. Secret War of S. Mikhalkov and D. Samoilov. talents and admirers, lucrative post and warm heart of A. Ostrovsky, State Councillor of M. Segalovich and B. Fans, the person has to live 50. Kompanetsa. The new repertoire of Karkralinsky State Farm and Collective Farm Theatre this year included statements by Shanov's oldest star, Alan's family, of Mukhtarov, behind the second front 5. Sobko and S. Begalens Schalpen.
However, despite efforts of on-stage performance groups and special attention of the public and party authorities to issues of development of theater in the country, the trend of decrease in attendance of theaters continued to develop.
The meeting of directors of theaters and managers of regional departments of affairs of arts. On March 17, 1951, Almata was devoted to definition of the reasons and search of ways from this situation, at which questions of a condition of the repertoire of drama theaters, practice of work of theaters over image of the Soviet person, improvement of quality of decorating of performances were considered.
The Republican Review of Drama Theaters, organized in 1957 by the Ministry of Culture of the Kazakhstan, which winners acquired the right to participate in the first 2 theatrical spring of the country, had an impact on further development of theater of the Central Kazakhstan for the first time.
Juries were highly appreciated performances of regional Kazakh and Russian theaters of the cities of Pavlodar, by a distance Bandlis and Verta, Akmelinsk, Y stars A. Kornikuka,
Karaganda,
and
Vogel's Auditor,
Kostane, Ivan Rybakov of 5. Kusev smiled. Professional easel forms of the fine arts of Kazakhstan, painting, sculpture, graphics, developed in the 1920th years of the 20th century. Till this time there was no uniform art center. Artists worked for Zolciano in development and the organization of national art of art education in the Republic, the merit of the Russian artists, among whom there is N. Shi. Ludov is big. He studied at the Odessa Drawing School, then at St. Petersburg at the artist N. Vogelinsky. Since 1879 until the end of the life I lived and I worked in true Almata. In 1920 the art workshops which united groups of artists and Ludov A. Ponomariev 5. Antonov, etc., which were important for consolidation of artists of the country, were created.
The powerful contribution to development of the fine arts and art education was brought the organizing and creative work by Nikolai Kratelnikov.
All the creative life Nikolai lived in Kazakhstan, at first in Semipalatinsk, then in Ksilorda and Almata. I graduated from the Kazan Art School in 1916. In 1921 I moved to Semipalatinsk, where developed big public and cultural activity. I was engaged in search of a young creative power. I conducted popularization work. I propagandized works of art among the population.
Kratelnikov was one of organizers of Art Studio in the city and the first mobile exhibition in the Republic.
In the same years occur in periodicals M.
Kudryashev 5,
Paniev 1, Zavliev's drawings, brothers Kulik met and Hadek met Hadakaikovic. 5. Nestorov A. Ismailev. However, to speak about active creative life of artists of Kazakhstan was early. The lack of the organizational center affected. The isolation of Kazakhstan is demonstrated also by this fact. On October 20, 1926, the Department of Studying of Arts of Nationalities of the USSR at the State Academy of Arts was open. The big role in creation and his activity belongs to Yao A. Tugankoldo, who wrote a significant amount of articles about the fine arts of the people of the USSR. But Kazakhstan remained out of sight of this scientist. The birth of national school is usually marked by emergence of uncommon talent. During this period, the Kazakh artist Abulkan Steve, the first professional artist of Kazakhstan, the winner of the State Award of Kazakhstan of Chach, Velikhanov, created. Formation and development of the Kazakh fine arts, an original way of graphic school of the country, is connected with his name. His creativity begins in the late 20s. A large number of the watercolors united in the Old and New Life series is written to them. Works of the artist find human feeling, careful attitude to history, tradition, to everything that defines a national originality. Works by Steve, more than 1,000 pictures, watercolors, drawings, call the Art Chronicle of the Republic. Important event in outlife of the country, the organization in 1928 by Narkomat National Education of Kazakhstan of a mobile exhibition of works of the Kazakhstan artists. From now on in Kazakhstan, mobile art exhibitions will systematically be organized. Almaty, 1929. Pavlodar, 1931. Similar exhibitions were opened by forces of local artists in Semipalatinsk, Petropavlovsk, Akhtubinsk, Shymkent. Since 1928, with construction in Kazakhstan of Turksib, large industrial objects, art and public life becomes more active. To the country there come experts in culture, art education from the central regions. Interest in Kazakhstan also the art organizations of Moscow show, in particular, the All-Russian Cooperative Association, Hudovnik. In 1932 the Organizing Committee of the Union of Artists of the USSR, and in 1933 the Organizing Committee of the Union of Artists of Kazakhstan was created, one of organizers of which was N. 1. Kratilnikov. Obakar Ismailev, the painter and the schedule, became the first chairman.
Creation of the Organizing Committee of the Union of Artists of Kazakhstan was an important event in art life of the Republic.
His activity was expressed in the regular organization of exhibitions, in consolidation and creative mobilization of artists. The first exhibition organized by the Organizing Committee in 1933 in Almaty set as the purpose identification creative, first of all national forces.
In 1934 several exhibitions, the most considerable of which was an art of the Soviet Kazakhstan exhibition, opened on May 8 after the Special Resolution 6 of Kazakhstan in the Museum of East Cultures in Moscow for broad acquaintance of workers of the USSR with the Kazakh art, were organized.
The exhibition showed that in the Republic there is no art school which would raise national shots. The I Congress of Artists of Kazakhstan. On June 24, 1940, Almaty became an epoch-making event. At a Congress, achievements of the Organizing Committee of the Union of Artists of Kazakhstan were noted. At the same time, it was emphasized that artists are faced by problems of increase in professional skill, improvements of work with talented youth. By then in Kazakhstan there was already a skeleton of national artists painters. Kazakhstan is the homeland of the Kazakh State Orchestra of National Tools of Kremengaza, the State Philharmonic Orchestra, the Kazakh National Opera and the Kazakh State Chamber Orchestra. The Musical and Drama Technical School, founded in 1931, was the first highest musical educational institution. The leading conservatory is in Almaty, Conservatory of Kremengaza.
The Kazakhstan music of the period of strong Russian influence consists of instrumental and vocal music.
Instrumental music with plays is given performed by soloists.
Vocal music is often executed or as a part of a ceremony, such as wedding,
generally performed by women, or as a part of a holiday. The Russian influence on the Kazakhstan music can be seen in two spheres.
First, introduction of musical academic institutes, such as concert houses with opera scenes, conservatories where the European music, and secondly, attempt of inclusion of the Kazakh traditional music in these academic structures was executed and taught.
They controlled at first by the Russian Empire, and then the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan national and classical traditions became connected with the ethnic Russian and the Western European music. Kazakhs, however, didn't write the music in notes till 1931. Later, as a part of the Soviet Union, the Kazakh national culture was encouraged with the disinfected way designed to avoid political and social disorders. In 1920, Alexander Zatayevich, the Russian official, created large works of art music with melodies and other elements of the Kazakh folk music.
The present situation can be characterized as attempt to rediscover traditional music in that look in what she existed before strong influence of the European musical styles.
Though the workmanship and aspiration to authenticity can't be ignored, it is important for the methodological reasons to remember that the modern musicians acting among traditional folk music are well-prepared professionals. Roshan Orazbaeva, Ramazan Stamgaziev. One more very difficult aspect arises from generation of young composers and also rock musicians and jazz musicians who seek to combine traditional heritage with music which they learned from the Western cultures, forming by a new stage of ethnic modern classics, or ethnic fate and jazz which would sound distinctly in Kazakh.
Two examples of similar music it is possible to allocate.
For the outstanding classical sector, Ektoto Rakhmatalievna, Turin Ensemble.
For jazz,
Magic of Nomads. For fate,
Oksanaki Erker, Ulita, Aldaspan.
Almaty, one of the most historically significant cities of the country. She has a large number of the historical objects making the history of Kazakhstan. In her central state museum, more than 20,000 exhibits of works of painting, graphics, a sculpture, decorative and applied art are kept. Here it is possible to plunge into history of the different periods.
To visit at the time of formation of the first states, development of nomadic culture, creation of the cities and Massachusetts resettlements of the people in the territory of the present republic.
The State Museum of Art of Abylkhan-Kastiev contains about 20,000 works of art and painting. In them it is possible to meet about 200 works by the Western masters. The Museum of National Musical Instruments was organized in 1980. It is one of cultural sites of the southern capital. Contains a unique collection of the Kazakh musical instruments which poets played, e.g.
singers, storytellers,
and composers, including a Dombrava-Bey Kunanbayev, Jambil, Makambet Amra, Dina and other famous figures of musical art.
Also in Alma-Ata there is a literary and memorial museum in honor of Jambil Jabayev.
The museum complex includes the house of the Akin where he lived in 1936, 38 and 1938, 45 years, where the remains of the poet, a garage and the office building are stored. Nargis Tlendiev, the famous composer and the performer, is also buried in this area. In funds and expositions of the museums as of 2016 there are about 3.6 million cultural values. On average annually the museums hold more than 7,000 exhibitions, 11,000 lectures, over 190,000 excursions. More than 5 million visitors get acquainted with expositions. In 2001 103 museums worked in the country, in 2016 their quantity reached 234. From 234 museums 89 local history, 52 memorial, 50 the historical, 11 museums of art criticism, 10 memorial estates, 4 natural history museums and 181 museums of other direction. In the territory of 9 memorial estates of the country, 2 international, about 40 republican and nearly 1,000 monuments of local value and also more than 5,000 petroglyphs, over 100 burial grounds under the open sky are located. In national cuisine butcher's meat can be made in various ways and usually is served with the wide range of traditional bakery products. Snack often include black tea and traditional drinks on the basis of milk, such as ayran, shubit and kumis. A traditional Kazakh dinner includes a set of snack on a table, then soup and 1 or 2 main courses, such as pilaf and beshbarmak follows. They also drink the national drink which consists of the fermented mare's milk. Popular snack is bortsogan, type of unleavened bread which, in addition, plays a large role in various ceremonies. Because of strong Russian influence within the 20th century, some Russians and the Ukrainian dishes also gained a foothold in Kazakhstan. Borscht, the Russian pancakes, pies and others concern them. Kazakh cuisine during the long period was formed on use of meat and milk. Horseflesh, mutton and products of their processing, the very limited and monotonous range of products which Kazakhs could use.
It is quite obvious that even the most sophisticated imagination couldn't create from one meat, milk and their derivatives a big variety, especially in the conditions of instability of housing and at extreme limitation if not total at almost total absence of vegetable and grain food raw materials up to the end of the beginning of the 19th century.
In leather bags. A sub from horse skin and from mutton. Made kumis and other fermented milk products, and in wooden tubs and leather subs cooked meat, lowering the heated stones there.
Therefore in ancient Kazakh cuisine completely there were no soups, and meat was used mainly boiled.
The pig iron cauldron is the main type of utensils and the center appeared only in the 18th century, and together with him there were also some freed meat dishes borrowed Uzbeks.
By the end of 19th, the beginning of the 20th century there was a characteristic of Kazakh cuisine and the Kazakh national table, Prevalence of meat and flour products and combinations of meat and torments in the main national courses, which classical example is Beshbarna.
At the same time, the use of various products of processing of horse and sheep milk, kumis, the curate, ayran and cheese, faded into the background a little. The traditional Kazakh festive lunch is peculiar. It begins with kumis, then tea with cream, to which serve raisin, nuts, dried cottage cheese and bortsogs follows. Small bowls from fried fancy pastry. After this introduction, various snacks follow from horse meat, smoked, semi-salty, boiled. Kaza, sujuk, reaped. And also snack from mutton, a kabirga or barakairik. A combination of horse meat and a mutton liver in sour milk sauce. All of them differ from each other not only in structure of meat, but also on ways of his preparation, in his quality and consistence.
Fat, fast, gentle, elastic, rich.
It brings a flavoring variety uniform at first sight meat table, especially as snack or eaten with tabananami. The Kazakh flat cakes from wheat flour with butter. And jam, radish salad or other fresh vegetables. Tomatoes, cucumbers. Then samosa. Meat pies. And only at the end of a lunch, that is the boiled horse flesh or mutton sliced thin across fibers, served with wide, thick noodles and fat, dense broth with oil, flat cakes aknan strewed with sesame or chopped onions follows.
Fat roast from a mutton liver, generally livers, kidneys and a lung.
This dish is washed down with kumis, which tea, this time without cream and milk, follows again. Kazakhstan steadily acts in the Olympic competitions. Especially it is successful in boxing. It drew some attention to the nation of Central Asia and increased awareness of the international community on her athletes. To Trykarpov and Olga Rypakova, some of the most noticeable Kazakhstan athletes. The Trykarpov, the outstanding decathlon competitor, the bronze prize winner of the Summer Olympic Games of 2004, the World Cups in track and field athletics of 2003 and 2007.
Olga Rypakova is the sportswoman specializing in a triple jump.
Women's. Who took silver of the World Cup of 2011 on track and field athletics and gold of the Summer Olympic Games of 2012. The Kazakhstan city of Almaty submitted the application for holding the Winter Olympic Games twice. In 2014 and again on Winter Olympic Games 2022. Nur Sultan and Almaty hosted Winter Asian Games 2011. Astana, the arena, opened in 2009. Players of FE Shakhtar, Karaganda. Popular sports in Kazakhstan are the soccer, basketball, hockey, bandy and boxing. Soccer, one of the most popular sports in Kazakhstan. The Football Federation of Kazakhstan is national authority of management. FIFA will organize men's, women's and the mini soccer teams.
Alsan Sharmakamidov playing for CSKA Moscow on the basketball national team of the Soviet Union in 1960th and 1970th was the most famous basketball player of Kazakhstan.
For the career he won a set of titles and medals at some of the most prestigious basketball competitions in the world, including the Summer Olympic Games, the Basketball World Cup, Eurobasket and EuroLeague. In 1971 I was entitled the Master of Sports of the Hussar of the International Class, and in a year it was awarded with an Order of the Badge of Honor. The national team of Kazakhstan in basketball was created in 1992, after disintegration of the Soviet Union. From the moment of the basis it was competitive at the continental level.
Her greatest achievement was at the Asian Games of 2002, where it won against Philippines the last game to win a bronze medal.
In the official basketball championship of Asia, now called the Cup of Champions of FIBA, the fourth place from 20 became the best finish of athletes. Hockey traditions of Kazakhstan are widely known. I was the real hockey source of manpower and still us Kamenogorsk is. Nowadays Katsink Torpedo.
Left ranks of West Kamenogorsk Torpedo Evgeny Paladyev, the three-time world champion, 7 years playing for Moscow Spartak, the participant of a legendary series of games of 1972 of the USSR, Canada, and Boris Alexandrov, the three-time champion of the USSR as a part of CSKA and the Olympic champion of Innsbruck -1976. The hockey national team of Kazakhstan, made of players of one club, Torpedo, divided 5-8 place with the national teams of the USA, Sweden and Belarus at the Olympic Games -1998 in Nagano.
After about 10 hockey players of Ostinka played in Nonal over the ocean.
Now the hockey in Kazakhstan endures the revival period. Internal national championship is played. Teams act in such leagues as Kiekland level. The Kazakhstan clubs successfully act in the Supreme Hockey League, in particular the Ust-Kamenogorsk Katsink Torpedo and the Karaganda Suryarka, who is an owner of a Cup of Britain of a season 2013-2014.
The bandy national team of Kazakhstan is one of the best in the world and repeatedly won bronze medals on the World Ice Hockey Championship with a ball, including in 2012 when Kazakhstan hosted a tournament in house ice. The team won the first bandy tournament at Winter Asian Games.
In Soviet period, Almaty Dynamo won the national championships of the Soviet Union in 1977 and 1990 and the European Cup in 1978.
The bandy develops in 10 of 17 administrative districts of the country. 8 of 14 areas and 2 of 3 cities which are located inside but aren't a part of regions. Axiak from Uralsk, however, is the only professional club. The Kazakhstan boxers in general are well known in the world. At the last 3 Olympic Games their performance was estimated as one of the best, and they had more medals than at any country of the world, except Cuba and Russia. In all 3 games. In 1996 and 2004, 3 Kazakhstan boxers. Vasily Zhurev in 1996, Bakhtiar Artayev in 2004 and Serik Sapiev in 2012. Were recognized as the best boxers for the equipment with Vel Barker's Cup, to the awarded best boxers of a tournament.
In the box Kazakhstan, I competed at Summer Olympic Games 2000 in Sydney, Australia.
2 boxers, Beksat Satarkanov and Ermakhan Ibrahimov, won gold medals.
2 more boxers, Bulat Zumadilov and Mukhtar Kandildabekov, won silver medals.
Also Oleg Maskayev, who was born in the Jambil region, representing Russia, became the champion of Dub in heavyweight after Hasim Rahman's knockout on August 12, 2006. The defending champion of Dub Ibn Ibo on average weight, the Kazakhstan boxer Gennady Golovkin. Natalia Rogozina, representing Russia, but who was born in the Karaganda region during the boxing career, owned 7 versions of a title of average weight and 2 titles of heavy. She holds a record as the most long-acting champion of Dub on average weight among women and as the most long-acting champion of Dub on average weight. The state film industry copes most part through the film studio Kazakhfilm, which is based in Almaty.
In the country, the film festival and action movies of Astana and the Eurasia Film Festival is annually held.
The only commercially successful genre in Kazakhstan, the comedy.
Considering a factor of the amount of the Kazakhstan market, the State Center of Support of Cinema initially puts before itself a priority in the form of cultural wealth of the movie.
Profit passes into the background that is shown by the history of creation of the Kazakhstan movies during the post-Soviet period. According to data on the film studio website Kazakhfilm, from 2010 to 2018 on the state money 85 art movies were shot. From them, presumably, only 3 movies paid for itself and made profit. It, Army Minbala, Shal and narration about a pink hair. Other pictures were non-profitable.
The beginning of the Kazakhstan cinema is considered to be from the movie Amangalda, which came out in 1938. The plots of the present of the time embodied in movies, We from Samarakia.
The director S. Hadakov and A. Akin. About fight of Renensky Bolsheviks for establishment of the Soviet power, Road of Life. A. Abusive. About construction of Turksib and formation of working class of the country, on Wild by Brigita Vertish. E. Aaron. About life of builders of hydroelectric power station on Irtish became the central theme of motion picture art of Kazakhstan of the 20th century. The 1950th years became history of motion picture art as one of the most fruitful stages in his development. The great influence in the Republic, as well as in the whole country, rendered the resolution of Council of Ministers of the USSR of November 18, 1952 on this process, about actions for increase in production of feature films. The repertoire strongly included such plays as M. As Ozabay, Yesterday and Today, Shens. Kusanova, One Tree, Not the Wood, A.
Tazabayeva, Friendship and Love of A.
Abashev, A Wolf Cub Under a Cap of K. Makhmedzanov.
The Soviet cinematographers paid considerable attention to creation of the art and documentary film chronicle of the Virgin epoch.
In the second half of the 50th years they shot 6 feature films about life of Tselinik. The course of development of a virgin soil was regularly lit in a periodic newsreel, the Soviet Kazakhstan. In special documentaries. Especially impressive was a movie, Fight for 1 Billion. M. Dulepo. The director Timur Bekmambetov gained world recognition. In spite of the fact that his professional activity was created in Russia, he positions himself as the Kazakhstan cinematographer. His movies are broadcast not only in Eastern Europe, but also in the West, including in the USA. Leading roles in many pictures of Bekmambetov are played by stars of world cinema.
The Kazakhstan journalist Artur Platonov became a winner in the Best Scenario nomination for the documentary, The Sold Souls, about a contribution of Kazakhstan to fight against terrorism at a ceremony of delivery of Cannes Corporate Media and TV Award 2013.
The movie Bauer by Cyril Kaprimov received an award of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Germany at a film festival of Central and Eastern Europe of Ghost. As of 2019 in Kazakhstan, 3328 media, of which 2790 make periodic printing editions, 128 TV channels, 70 radio, 340 news agencies and online medias were registered. Remain the most numerous group printing -2790. 83. 8%. Of total number of the registered media, from them -1800 newspapers and 990 magazines.
For January 15, 2019 in the Register of Media it is recorded 225 foreign TV and a radio channel.
On country accessory 161 make the Russian TV channels, 15 the USA, 16 Estonia, 20 Great Britain, 6 France, 1 to Cyprus belongs. In all territory of the Republic by means of cable and satellite channels programs of BBC, CNN, Deutsche Welle, a broadcast to Radio Freedom, the Polish channel Polonia, the Russian and other TV and radio channels. Except the main languages Kazakh and Russian. Media leave on Ukrainian, Polish, German, Korean, Uyghur, Turkish, Dungansky and other languages. Kazakhstan takes the 157th place from 180 countries in the Index of Freedom of the Press made by Reporters Without Borders. In the court order from the middle of March 2002 on which the government acted as a plaintiff, it was said that the oppositional newspaper, Respublika Televiziya Obozreniya, has to stop the press for 3 months.
The resolution was Uklanino edition by issue of the newspaper under other names.
At the beginning of 2014 the court also issued the order on the termination of the publication of the limited newspaper Asandi Times, having stated that she enters Republic.
Human Rights Watch said,
"This absurd business shows how far the authorities of Kazakhstan are ready to go to neutralize criticism. The first president of Kazakhstan, it is law, estimated a possibility of pluralism at networks. In the same place it is told, what the hell? Can write anything on anyone.
You don't know someone did it, the author won't tell there.
This business useless. It is necessary to strengthen the internal content of the internet that to any such frivolous attacks to be able to answer, explain to the people where it is good to eat and where it is bad," he noticed. Public holidays, such as New Year, the International Women's Day, Victory Days on May 9 celebrated in Kazakhstan remained since existence of the Soviet Union. There are also new holidays which appeared after finding by the Republic of Sovereignty. For example, Independence Day and Constitution Day.
It is also possible to carry the holiday of unity of the people celebrated on May 1 to new holidays.
For many people the holiday of work had no political overtones, and was only one more spring holidays. The government of Kazakhstan moved towards wishes of workers, and left a May Day holiday, having wrapped up him in a new, neutral connotation.
The Day of the First President of Kazakhstan, which is annually celebrated on December 1, was founded in December 2011. Since 2012 the status of a public holiday was received by the Defender of the Fatherland Day.
Stands the holiday Nowruz, abolished by the Soviet power in 1926 and again revived in 1988 alone, and state it acquired the status on March 15, 1991 after a release of the decree of the President of the Kazakh Tsar about a national holiday of spring. Since 2009, the Nowruz is officially celebrated in Kazakhstan 3 days in a row, on March 21, 22 and 23. The modern Nowruz kept continuity of traditions of antiquity. In the conditions of revival of national culture, it is an important link of times, history and the present of the country. In days of the Nowruz on streets of the cities and the settlements of Kazakhstan, elegant yurts in which persons interested can try festive entertainments are put.
Massachusetts games are everywhere held.
Kazakhstan has 5 objects of cultural and natural heritage in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List. Haji Ahmed Yasavi's mausoleum, petroglyphs of an archaeological landscape of the Tambili, Suryaka, steppes and lakes of northern Kazakhstan, the western Tian Shan and objects of the Great Silk Way to Chang'an, Tian, the Shansky Corridor.
Also far.
Write comments.
Read comments.
Interesting people will tell interesting stories.
All of good mood and good luck.